Chapter 12:11. In the conference room, Chun Mingming recalled what he had read from the parchment and compared it with the analysis of the case. However, he found that the contents of the parchment were exactly the same as what the police had. Not only the information, but even the identity had been prepared. It seemed that the boss didn't deliberately make things difficult for him. In fact, it was completely convenient for him. On the other hand, the time to solve the case was now within 5 days. So far, we have tracked down the other 2 women who were related to Wang Liang. The person in charge of intelligence was now updating everyone with new information. However, according to the time of death of the forensic doctor, we found that the 2 women had alibis, so we can basically rule them out as suspects. Another female police officer said at this time, Sir Zhou, I've compared similar cases in the past 3 years with the information of some fugitive wanted criminals, but I didn't find any similarities. Could it be the first time or the second time? Ma Hao rubbed his eyebrows. The murderer is so meticulous for the first time. Is this murderer a devil? They didn't even know whether the murderer was a man or a woman, their approximate age, height, weight, and so on. They only knew that the murderer was a clean freak. Zhou Yuxing knocked on the table and fell into deep thought. This was the first time Chun Mingming was so close to someone who was working on a case. Being in such an environment, Chun Mingming couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded. At this time, Zhou Yuxing was silent and frowning. This was another side of Zhou Yuxing that Chun Mingming had never seen before. In his memory, his father was a person who was often drunk and irritable. Chun Mingming, who hadn't seen his father for many years, unconsciously became absent-minded. So, one day, I can really work with my father on a case? He gradually couldn't distinguish between reality and illusion. It was as if the current him was the real him. Everything that had happened before yesterday was just a dream. Is there anything on my face? Feeling Chun Mingming's gaze, Zhou Yuxing couldn't help but be stunned. Captain Zhou was a loud person. His voice soon attracted everyone's attention, and they all looked at him. Chun Mingming was not used to so many eyes at the same time. They were different from the students in the school, and their gazes were also different from the students in the school. Subconsciously, Chun Mingming actually had a trace of panic. Chun Mingming took a deep breath. He had already thought of a response, but when the words reached his mouth, Chun Mingming found that he couldn't say them. The words that almost slipped out of his mouth turned into a single sentence in the end. Nothing. Okay. Zhou Yuxing nodded, then fell into deep thought again. Chun Mingming was briefly stunned before he subconsciously stood up and whispered, I'm going to the washroom. With that, Chun Mingming quickly left and soon disappeared from everyone's sight. However, he didn't really go to the bathroom. Instead, he came to an empty, small balcony on the floor. He subconsciously unbuttoned his collar, and only then did he feel that his breathing became smooth. I actually know how to. Chun Mingming looked at the street outside. The endless flow of traffic mixed with faint voices of people. Chun Mingming quickly calmed down. He soon realized his own problem. Under the different gazes of the students, under the different environment of the classroom, he actually subconsciously chose to hide himself. He instinctively felt restrained, and even had a feeling that he couldn't breathe smoothly. He even felt nervous. Chun Mingming suddenly fell into a trance. Just from this group meeting, Chun Mingming realized a problem. He didn't seem to be as excellent as he thought. What are you thinking about? Suddenly, Chun Mingming felt that his shoulder was patted from behind. This was the voice of his father, Zhou Yuxing. Chun Mingming tried not to panic too much. He shook his head and didn't say anything. Zhou Yuxing smiled and said, Don't put too much pressure on yourself. You haven't been a policeman for long, and you've encountered such a big case. It's inevitable that you'll be a little nervous. He saw through it. Chun Mingming was stunned. He thought about whether he had exposed any flaws. Do I look nervous? Chun Mingming frowned and asked. Zhou Yuxing pointed at his eyes and said, You don't look nervous, but you're still too inexperienced. What do you think I do? I've seen at least 800 criminals, if not 1,000. I can't hide my eyes. Chun Mingming was silent for a moment, then said slowly, Maybe. Zhou Yuxing suddenly grabbed Chun Mingming's shoulders with both hands. Relax, you're the first to graduate from school. You're much better than me. I just gave you some experience, that's all. But you'll have these things too, so you'll definitely be better than me in the future. In his impression, he had never said such words to him. Chun Mingming nodded and suddenly said, I want to go to the crime scene again. Crime scene? Zhou Yuxing was stunned, then nodded and agreed. Okay, maybe something was missed. You wait. I'll get the car. I'll go with you. The investigation of the crime scene was naturally not only the discovery of the body. In fact, many investigations have been done later, but for those who wanted to solve the case, as long as the case was not solved, the crime scene would be worth investigating. Looking at Zhou Yuxing's back, Chen Mingming smiled bitterly. Investigating a case with his father. This was something he had never thought of. This different feeling made it difficult for Chun Mingming to maintain his usual calmness from the beginning. He suddenly thought of the most suitable adjective to describe his current state. Ambitious but incompetent. Okay, you continue to follow Zhao Lu. Once you find the target, inform me immediately. In the office of the administration in the city, Lu Mingho began to eat breakfast after receiving the report from Bu Bugao while watching the news on the administration's intranet. Brother Hao, I've finished talking with Director Lu. He will arrange the next things. Wei Zidao came back from outside. What are you looking at? Lu Mingho said casually, looking at the news of the Death Network case. Is there any new news? Wei Zidao asked curiously. This case is so mysterious. It's been almost half a year, right? Yes. Lu Mingho nodded. This Death Network case was first discovered about half a year ago. In this half a year, there would be some deaths all over the country. From time to time, such things would happen. The sudden death of a young man addicted to the internet. Generally speaking, this kind of person who was addicted to the virtual world and neglected their own health, or even worked hard in the virtual world for several days and nights, and finally died suddenly, was not uncommon. Basically, when similar situations were found, it would be classified as a natural death. However, as such cases began to increase, it gradually attracted the attention of the administration. They had a special department that would pay attention to all kinds of ordinary cases all the time, because many transcendent crimes were hidden in these seemingly ordinary cases. Finally, when someone found that during this period, more than 70% of the people who died suddenly because of the virtual world were playing the same game, finally attracted the attention of the administration. The administration began to intervene behind the mysterious case, and soon found an incredible thing. Those who died suddenly because of the game, after they were found dead, their game accounts were still active in the game. Yes, they were active, they could move, chat, and play instance dungeons, not just the accounts that existed as game data. What was more incredible was that these accounts belonged to the deceased, their IP addresses could not be found. It was as if they appeared out of thin air. With the in-depth investigation, the administration even found a lot of people in a coma state. These people basically fell in front of their computers, and the computers were playing the game. At present, there were a lot of people in a coma in the country, although they were scattered all over the country, and there might only be one inconspicuous case in some places. The number of people in a coma in the whole country became very considerable. Those who were in a coma, their accounts were still active, but suddenly one day, these accounts would suddenly disappear. At the same time, the people in a coma would directly die. Finally, the agency named the case Network of Death. It was a supernatural case, and they came to a shocking conclusion. That was, the souls of these people in a coma were very likely to have been sucked into this strange game. During this period, the administration had invested a lot of manpower and material resources to investigate this case. It was only because of the major case that happened in Mount Tai last month that the case temporarily stopped. Now that the Mount Tai case had been settled, the Death Network naturally began to investigate again. Lu Mingho and Wei Zidao were not the people who investigated this case, but they were always paying attention to it. After all, the victims of the Death Network did not have a fixed geographical pattern. Perhaps they would encounter it in the process of handling other cases. It says that in the past half-month, the number of people in a coma has suddenly increased. Lu Mingho frowned. It's increasing at a speed several times faster than before, and it's no longer limited to the game Jade Fantasy. It's getting more serious? Wei Zidao also frowned. As far as he knew, the victims in the beginning were all playing the same game. So the company that produced the game was naturally thoroughly investigated from top to bottom. Originally, the administration had thought of directly shutting down the server of the game company, but they were worried that the souls trapped in the game would be affected or even directly cause the death of the people in a coma. Therefore, the game had to continue to operate. In fact, the game company had now changed hands and was currently under the strict control of the administration. Yes, the higher-ups are having a headache, Lu Mingho said with a straight face. There's one more thing. Last week, the original game suddenly received an update. However, this update was not developed by the game company itself. It was also not through the game server. Instead, it was an automatic version update. Our people can't trace the source of the update data at all. Since this update, the number of people in a coma has begun to increase, and it's no longer limited to playing this game. And in this game, many abnormal accounts have inexplicably appeared. It seems that, even overseas, such a situation has begun to appear. Overseas, Wei Zidao subconsciously gasped. Does this mean that the virtual game has become a demon? I don't know. Lu Mingho shook his head, but now the administration plans to send people to play this game, hoping to find a way to enter the game with souls. That's all for now, and there's no more. How many victims are there? Wei Zidao asked subconsciously. According to incomplete statistics, there are already about 80,000 people. Lu Mingho said, and most of them are already dead, and there are about 16,000 or 17,000 people in a coma at present. Wei Zidao smiled bitterly. If this number continues to increase, I'm afraid the administration won't be able to cover it up. 80,000 people seem to be a lot, but if they were scattered all over the country, or even all over the world, it seems so small. But no matter how small it was, if this number continued to increase, it would inevitably attract the attention of the society. And at that time, a simple explanation would not be able to cover up the matter. Yeah, Lu Mingho smiled bitterly. It's really an eventful time. By the way, the equipment I applied for should be delivered in the afternoon. When the time comes, let's see if we can find the location of this 24. You can go and prepare. Okay. In the headquarters of the administration in the distant capital, in a room with dozens of high-end computers, rows after rows of men and women were fighting with all their might, the monsters in the game. Damn it! Is the first floor of the Demon King's castle hell difficulty? Heal me! Heal me! The bustling shouts came one after another. This place was the most common internet cafe in the city. Attention, everyone, I have a payment here. Suddenly, in front of one of the computers, a young man pressed the bell next to the table. This instantly attracted everyone's attention, including one of the people in charge of the case. After playing for so long, it finally appeared, the secret behind the game. Agree or disagree? Team leader? Agree. Otherwise, all the previous efforts will be wasted. The young man in front of the computer nodded and then took a deep breath. This was because this was the first time this special interface had appeared, and there was a countdown circle on it. Obviously, it wouldn't stay there forever. He didn't know when it would appear again. Finally, under the instruction of the team leader, the young man directly clicked the agree button. He was naturally very nervous, but in addition to him, there were dozens of agents and logistical support personnel here, and this was the administration's headquarters, which was known to be able to withstand a nuclear bomb. Even if this computer exploded, it would not hurt anyone. However, the moment the young man clicked agree, he directly collapsed onto the table without making a sound. And the account belonging to this young man, at this moment, actually moved automatically, and a line of words appeared in the chat channel. I really have to come in the game. Chapter 12:12. For a moment, Chun Mingming felt that it might be a good thing if the car could slow down a little, or if the destination was a little further away. The father and son chatted in the car. They would discuss things related to the case, talk about things that were not important, or sigh when they passed by a place that had changed. It was a very strange feeling. The father and son were in the same place. It was as if they were playing a detective game together. Of course, this was a real-life investigation, and it was very likely that they would encounter dangers outside the game. Unknowingly, the car stopped. Wang Liang's rental apartment had already been sealed. Without another word, Zhou Yuxing tore open the seal, opened the door, and walked in. Chun Mingming, on the other hand, subconsciously stood outside the door with a thoughtful expression. Zhou Yuxing turned around and asked curiously, "What did you find?" Chun Mingming shook his head subconsciously and walked into the rental house. The body in the freezer had already been moved away, but the freezer hadn't been moved. Everything in the rental house hadn't been touched, and it still looked unusually clean. Zhou Yuxing had been to the scene several times, but he didn't find any new clues. If Chun Mingming hadn't asked to take another look, he probably wouldn't have come again in a short period of time. However, the air in the room was a little stuffy. Zhou Yuxing went straight to the window and opened it. He wasn't afraid that he would ruin the scene. After such a long time, the colleagues in charge of collecting evidence had already collected all the valuable things. According to the colleagues who collected evidence, when they came to the scene, they didn't find any fingerprints at all. The rental house was so clean that it looked like it had been washed inside and out with disinfectant. But this was Chun Mingming's first time here. He frowned and looked at the clean rental house. The first thing he felt was a very comfortable feeling. He felt that the house was in the best condition. Even if they wanted to clean it, they had already cleaned the places that shouldn't be cleaned. Zhou Yuxing knew that there wasn't much value in this place, but that didn't stop him from accompanying Chun Mingming in the investigation. In his opinion, this was a very good thing that could increase Chun Mingming's case experience. He wasn't even in a hurry to ask Chun Mingming. Instead, he waited very patiently. Perhaps subconsciously, as a father, he also hoped that Chun Mingming could give him some unexpected surprises. Chun Mingming suddenly moved. He suddenly opened the shoe cabinet at the door, and under Zhou Yuxing's astonished gaze, he took out some shoes and casually threw them on the ground. Zhou Yuxing was stunned and was about to ask him what he wanted to do. Chun Mingming was no longer satisfied with just rummaging through the shoe cabinet. He began to walk around the house. The sofa, the cupboard, the table, and even the bedroom, bathroom, and kitchen, he messed up everything that should have been neat and tidy. Finally, Chun Mingming returned to the entrance. At this time, the whole rental house was in a mess. It was more like a single man's living condition. Although Wang Liang had many girlfriends, they were not living together. According to the investigation, Wang Liang was not a clean freak. The police had once visited the bar where Wang Liang had worked. In the storage compartment that Wang Liang had not cleaned after he regained his senses, they could see that the things inside were a mess. "What do you want to do?" Zhou Yuxing frowned and asked in confusion. After a moment of silence, Chun Mingming said, "I want to simulate the murderer's movements." Simulate. Zhou Yuxing couldn't help but be stunned, then nodded. "Okay, you are a profiler, then give it a try. You imitate the murderer, and I will imitate Wang Liang. However, we don't even know the murderer's killing method." "The time is at night," Chun Mingming said subconsciously. "At night? Late at night is the best time to hide." Chun Mingming muttered, assuming that Wang Liang did not resist at that time. "He's probably asleep or drunk." "Drunk," Zhou Yuxing said. According to the investigation, Wang Liang is a person who is easily sober. He works in a bar. There's a lot of wine in this house. He should have a habit of drinking, and a drunk person is the easiest to kill. As for the place where he slept after getting drunk, seeing that the rental house was so clean, Zhou Yuxing felt that it was the same wherever he slept. He simply lay down on the sofa. "You can start." Chun Mingming nodded, walked out, and closed the door. He stood in front of the door, closed his eyes, put his hand on the doorknob, and remained motionless. Suddenly, Chun Mingming opened his eyes and gently pushed the door open. When he entered the house and saw the messy entrance, he frowned. Then, he straightened out the shoes that were messily placed at the entrance and slowly walked into the house. At this time, Zhou Yuxing, who saw Chun Mingming's actions, was stunned at first, then quickly lay down, but he didn't close his eyes. Chun Mingming quickly came to the sofa, but he didn't make a move. The father and son looked at each other. Although Zhou Yuxing was very curious, he didn't disturb them. He knew that the simulation of a case required a certain degree of concentration, especially the person who played the murderer, who was wholeheartedly immersed in the scene. Finally, Chen Mingming made a move. He walked into the kitchen, took out a roll of plastic wrap, then came in front of Zhou Yuxing and slowly put the plastic wrap on Zhou Yuxing's face. Of course, he didn't wrap it firmly. Zhou Yuxing pretended to struggle in pain, then stopped moving. After that, Chen Mingming stopped and didn't move again. After a long time, seeing that Chen Mingming didn't move next, Zhou Yuxing finally couldn't help but remove the plastic wrap on his face, sat up, and asked, "What's the problem?" "Something's wrong." Chen Mingming frowned. "What's wrong?" Zhou Yuxing asked in shock. "Oh right, why did you choose plastic wrap and not other murder weapons?" Chen Mingming subconsciously said, "If other murder weapons were used in places like the sofa or bed, it's easy to leave bloodstains. Since the murderer is a person who likes to be clean, then he wouldn't dirty anything unnecessary when he did it. Suffocation should be his first choice. Of course, it could also be poison. But considering that the murderer had cleaned up the rental house so well, it would be wrong to use poison. If it was poison, there was no need for him to clean up the house." "Well, what you said makes sense." Zhou Yuxing nodded. "You haven't told me what's wrong? It's not coherent." Chen Mingming muttered. Dismembering the body doesn't fit the murderer's personality. He chose to suffocate, so there's no need to dismember the body at all. It will only make the place dirtier. Maybe he has a dual personality. Besides being clean, he also has a violent side. Zhou Yuxing analyzed. Chen Mingming said, "Then he should have used a more violent and cruel weapon from the beginning. Anyway, he has to be cleaned up in the end." Well, Zhou Yuxing couldn't help but ponder. At this time, the phone rang. After Zhou Yuxing picked it up, he quickly nodded. "Okay, I got it." After the phone was hung up, Zhou Yuxing said seriously, "Find out where this freezer was sold from." In the whole rental house, only the freezer used to hide the body was so out of place. Normal people naturally didn't need this kind of thing at home. Besides, there was already a refrigerator in the kitchen in the rental house. Wang Liang obviously didn't need another refrigerator. Then there was only one possibility. The freezer was very likely prepared by the murderer in advance. After thinking about this matter, the police and the criminal police unit couldn't help but feel angry. The murderer brazenly hid the body after dismembering it, and even used Wang Liang's phone and SIM card to create the illusion that Wang Liang was still alive. It was as if he was challenging the police. When he went out, Zhou Yuxing wanted to go to the shop that sold the freezer as soon as possible. He thought that it was very likely that he could find some breakthrough clues about the murderer. But Chen Mingming thought of another thing. The test questions, the information on the sheepskin scroll, and the last sentence written. The key person, Zhao Le. Subconsciously, Chen Mingming didn't mention this to Zhou Yuxing, because the police had already concluded that Zhao Le couldn't complete the other murder case. This was an electrical appliance repair department, located in the old street. According to the investigation of the freezer, many parts of the internal wiring of the freezer were old. Obviously, it wasn't brand new, but the factory information could be found. They tracked down the original buyer and found out from the buyer that the freezer was directly sold as a second-hand to an old electrical appliance recycler. Finally, they found out from the recycler that the freezer was sold to this repair department in the end. After arriving, Zhou Yuxing directly showed his ID card in front of the boss and gave him the photo and model of the freezer. This freezer was indeed sold by us. The boss gave the answer after thinking for a while. Zhou Yuxing's face immediately lit up, and he quickly asked, "How do you remember what the person who bought it looked like?" The boss said, "I don't know." That day, a man wearing a mask and a mask came to buy something. After he bought it, he wrote an address for us to send it there, and then we didn't contact him. "You didn't enter the house?" Chen Mingming frowned. The boss shook his head and said, "We didn't enter the house, we just put it at the door." Speaking of which, it's strange. Almost no one would stop us from putting it at the door. So I remember this quite clearly. Then, can you probably remember the characteristics of the man who bought it? Zhou Yuxing continued to ask. The boss shook his head and said, Sir, this is something that happened a few months ago. How can I remember it so clearly?" "Okay." Zhou Yuxing nodded helplessly, but then he arranged for someone to come over and make a jigsaw puzzle for the boss. At least, he wouldn't miss any clues. The father and son didn't have any major breakthroughs here, but looking at the time, the sky was already dark. In the past week, Zhou Yuxing didn't force himself to work like before. Instead, he would go to work on time. He looked at the time and said, "It's already so late. Let's go home directly?" Chun Mingming was stunned, then nodded. "Go home. Go back to Zhou Yuxing's place. Not the place where he and his mother lived, right?" Chun Mingming couldn't help but have a strange feeling in his heart, but he couldn't say it. Forget it, anyway. He had to complete the assessment these few days, so it seemed more convenient to live with his father for a few days. Originally, the place where Zhou Yuxing lived used to be where he lived. He actually still had the key. At 7 o'clock in the evening, when Zhou Yuxing returned home and took out the key to open the door, Chun Mingming smelled the aroma of food. He couldn't help but be startled. A woman wearing an apron walked out of the kitchen with vegetables. Chun Mingming was stunned on the spot. This woman was none other than his mother. "You're back. It's time to eat. Wash your hands quickly." The woman smiled and said, "It smells so good." Zhou Yuxing was full of smiles. "Mingming, why are you standing still?" The woman looked at Chun Mingming with a puzzled expression. Chun Mingming opened his mouth, then chose to be silent. He chose to walk into the bathroom. He felt that he needed to calm down. Even this relationship between husband and wife was mended. Looking at himself in the mirror, Chun Mingming couldn't help but be a little distracted. When he walked out of the bathroom, his parents were already sitting at the dining table. Zhou Yuxing was burying his head in the rice, and his mother was filling a bowl of soup for him. He sat down subconsciously. At this time, his father and mother were chatting or talking about some trivial matters. Zhou Yuxing probably didn't like these trivial matters, so he casually asked Chun Mingming, "Mingming, I suddenly thought of something. Why do you think the murderer chose to buy an old freezer?" Chun Mingming subconsciously said, "Maybe it's easier to track down a new freezer, or maybe the murderer's finances aren't that good, so he chose this relatively cheap secondhand freezer. Also, regular retail departments usually have surveillance cameras, so the murderer probably didn't want to expose himself." "And I think so too." Zhou Yuxing nodded. "You too. Since you're home, can you stop talking about the case?" His mother was slightly angry and glared at Zhou Yuxing. "Do you still want to eat?" Eat. Of course I'll eat." Zhou Yuxing shrugged and smiled cheekily. His mother rolled her eyes at him, then turned to look at Chun Mingming. "Don't learn from your father's bad habits, okay?" With that, his mother picked up a piece of drumstick for Chun Mingming. Listening to his mother scolding his father, looking at Zhou Yuxing's impatient but not daring talk back, and then looking at the drumstick in his bowl, Chun Mingming subconsciously touched his cheek. For some reason, it became wet. "Learn to cry. Is this what it means?" "Son, why are you crying?" His mother was suddenly shocked and flustered. Zhou Yuxing also put down his chopsticks and looked at him with concern. Chun Mingming's lips trembled a few times, and his voice was a bit hoarse. "Nothing. I just feel like I haven't eaten Mom's food for a long time. It's delicious." "Silly child, you gave a new name, Red Dust." This was the second time Luochio tasted this newly made wine. Sitting in front of the bar, holding his chin with one hand and gently shaking the glass in his hand, Luochio's eyes gradually became hazy as he watched Chun Mingming go through the assessment. If he hadn't walked to the entrance of the club out of curiosity that day, or if he could push back the time again, if his father hadn't left, would he also have such a day? Going to the case with his father, going home together, sitting at the dining table, watching the figure busily preparing dinner. Would he also have a day when he inadvertently discussed the case with his father during dinner and then caused his mother to be dissatisfied? Eating such a meal, having such a night. Red Dust is like a dream. Chapter 12:13. The first day of the assessment had passed, but there were no major breakthroughs in the case. Chun Mingming woke up as usual. A strange feeling followed, but it gradually became familiar. After all, this was the place he had lived for more than 10 years. There were sounds outside the room. It was the sound of his parents talking to his mother. What happened yesterday was indeed not a dream. He suddenly felt a little greedy for the feeling of this moment. After a while, Zhou Yuxing pushed the door open and came in. Oh, you're up. I was going to wake you up. Hurry up and eat breakfast. We're going out later. Chun Mingming thought about the case and said, I might go back later. I want to go to Wang Liang's workplace to take a look. Although there was detailed information on the parchment, Chun Mingming had not been there personally, so it was inevitable that he would miss some of the details. Zhou Yuxing was stunned, then nodded. It was a good thing that his son was so concerned about the case. Okay, I'll give you an application to go out later. Zhou Yuxing reminded him, be careful. Let me know immediately if there's any news. After a simple conversation, Chun Mingming got up and washed up. He and his mother took advantage of the free time to have a simple conversation. Chun Mingming found that his mother had indeed forgotten about going abroad. This seemed to be the state she was in a few years ago, a state where family was the center and career was the secondary. Since his mother and father separated and then divorced, his mother devoted almost all her time to work. She had great achievements in her career, but the fatigue on her face was getting heavier day by day. Chun Mingming had not seen such a hearty smile in a long time. I forgot to take the key. When they were leaving, his wife sent him and his son to the door and asked casually, what do you want to eat for dinner? Zhou Yuxing was sweeter than before. He said that everything was delicious, which made his wife roll her eyes. Chun Mingming directly said 2 favorite dishes, and his mother agreed with a smile. Yesterday was Saturday, and today was Sunday. On a day off, there were not many people on the streets in the early morning. Chun Mingming followed the address on the information and found the place where Wang Liang used to work. But the bar was obviously not open. He contacted the bar owner. After a brief explanation, the bar owner had to get up and find an employee to open the door for Chun Mingming. Finally, when it was almost 11 o'clock in the morning, an employee with bloodshot eyes rode his electric scooter to the door of the bar and opened it. Chun Mingming frowned at the sight of the garbage on the ground and the various smells in the air. That employee said awkwardly, Sir, we usually clean the shop before opening in the afternoon. We work until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, so we are exhausted. I want to take a look at Wang Liang's locker, Chun Mingming said directly. This young man was a waiter in the bar. He was young, about 20 years old. He brought Chun Mingming to Wang Liang's locker in the break room. Then, he leaned against the locker and yawned, looking dispirited. Chun Mingming looked at the things in the cabinet. There was actually nothing here. All the things inside had been taken away. Recalling the information he had investigated, Chun Mingming began to think about the things he wanted to ask. What's your relationship with Wang Liang? Him? They're colleagues. What's their relationship? The young man's eyes were drowsy, and he answered casually, Sir, you've come here several times. You've asked almost everything you want to know. How's his financial situation? It doesn't seem to be good. This guy likes to gamble. He owes a lot of gambling debts outside. People often come to collect debts. The young man thought for a while and said, It's still the same as what I've investigated. Chun Mingming thought for a while, then took out his mobile phone and clicked on the photos. Have you seen these women? There were photos of Zhang Xiaoqin and Wu Rong. The others were also related to Wang Liang. You've asked before, aren't these Wang Liang's girlfriends? The young man wiped his face, but speaking of which, although this guy is not good, he's really good at picking up girls. Here, this one, and this one, he often brings them to the bar. The young man pointed at the photos of Wu Rong and another woman. He often brings these 2 women here. Don't you say anything? Chun Mingming asked curiously. The young man said, What's there to say? It's not a strange thing. As a man, it's fine to have a foot in 2 boats. It's a matter of being able to pick up a woman. Besides, there's no need for us to offend Wang Liang for irrelevant people. After all, we see each other often. Since he brought them here, we could just greet them as we should. Chun Mingming said, I heard that before Wang Liang resigned, Wu Rong, this woman came to cause a ruckus. The young man nodded. That's right. It was quite a ruckus. That woman was crazy enough. She nearly stabbed him with a knife. In the end, Wang Liang had to beg the entire way there. It took him most of the night before it was resolved. As the saying goes, one who climbs many mountains will eventually encounter a tiger. If you don't have a diamond in your hand, don't take on a porcelain job. Something was bound to happen if you messed around. What happened after that? After that, Wang Liang didn't come to work for a few days. He was gone for about a week. Then he came back. After a few days, he said he was resigning. Did you see Wu Rong again? Or the other woman Wang Liang brought here? No, I don't think so. The young man thought for a moment and said, there are so many people here at night. The lights are also dim. Even if she came, I might not have noticed her. Chun Mingming remembered the hint on the sheepskin scroll and opened another photo. This man, have you seen him before? No. The young man shook his head. Chun Mingming nodded. After leaving the bar, it was already lunchtime. Chun Mingming sat alone in a public square. He slowly exhaled and kept recalling the young man's words. Suddenly, a huge shadow appeared before Chun Mingming. He raised his head to look. It was a huge brown bear. Of course, it wasn't a real brown bear. It was just a person wearing a prop costume. Under Chun Mingming's astonishment, the brown bear suddenly extended its claws and used force to clamp Chun Mingming's cheeks. From the brown bear's hood came a deep voice. Wah, disobedient child, I will eat you. What are you doing here? Chun Mingming asked expressionlessly. At this time, the brown bear let go of its hands and took off its hood. It was the library girl, Tara. After taking off the hood, Tara's face was full of sweat. Then she sat down at work. Didn't I say I have to work on Saturday and Sunday? I'm going to travel during the summer vacation, so I need to save money. Boyfriend, why are you here? Chun Mingming's intuition told him that Tara didn't really have feelings for him. This girl just approached him with kindness. Just walking around. Chun Mingming answered subconsciously. Well, you want to take a good look at this city before going abroad? Tara blinked her eyes. Chun Mingming's lips twitched. Tara didn't have his memories temporarily altered like his parents and the other police officers in the police station. But thinking about it, it seemed to be true. He was just participating in a 5-day assessment. Changing his identity within the police station was already the greatest convenience. It seemed that it was impossible to completely change the trajectory of his life. If it really did that, then was this world the original world or another world? Chun Mingming always felt like he was looking at a leopard through a tube. If a simple few rounds could make me feel nostalgic, I probably wouldn't have decided to go abroad. Chun Mingming shook his head and said, well, you're a bit different today. Tara suddenly looked at Chun Mingming seriously. Chun Mingming asked curiously, what's the difference? Tara said seriously, you have something on your mind, and you have become more talkative. Chun Mingming was startled. It was true that he had something on his mind, but how could he explain that he became more talkative? And Tala suddenly patted Chun Mingming's head. Your eyes are much brighter and not as cold as before. We haven't seen each other for only a day. Did something good happen to you? Probably. Chun Mingming smiled, subconsciously, thinking of the dinner last night. Tara suddenly shouted, don't move. Chun Mingming was startled. Tara quickly took out her hand from her costume and pressed her finger on Chun Mingming's cheek. I said this, smile. Don't move. It's not easy. This is the first time I saw you smile. Don't move, please don't move. Tara took out her phone and took a picture of the rare scene that she was talking about. The moment the shutter sounded, Chun Mingming suddenly felt like he was in a dream. Tara looked at her phone with satisfaction. Chun Mingming didn't know where her satisfaction came from, but he felt that her smile was really beautiful. Tara cleared her throat and said seriously, well, to reward you, I will give you a special service. What? Tara smiled slyly and put Chun Mingming on his lap. He covered Chun Mingming's eyes with his hands and said softly, this is the best service. Enjoy it. The moment his eyes were covered, a wave of tiredness hit him. Once again, the feeling of lying on a grassland under the blue sky and white clouds appeared. Chun Mingming was greedy and intoxicated and soon fell asleep. When he woke up again, the girl who was full of energy had left just like the last time. The figure of the brown bear could no longer be seen in the square. Chun Mingming felt full of energy with an indescribable sense of relaxation. Recalling the investigation in the morning, Chun Mingming called an online taxi. He felt that it was necessary to meet Zhao. When getting on the car, Chun Mingming suddenly remembered that he had sent the pistol to Zhao, but now he couldn't remember why he sent the pistol. The authority? In the study, Luaccio was slightly stunned after turning off the light and shadow. Miss Maid stood in front of the desk and said softly, "They should have noticed something long ago, and finally got in this time." Luaccio thought for a while and said, "Tell me about the situation." Yu said, "At present, they have controlled the game company behind the scenes. But they didn't know that the server of the game company was just a window of the God Master plan. Even without the server of the game company, the game world would still run automatically. Because they didn't know the concept, they didn't even dare to shut down the original server of the game company." Luaccio crossed his hands and nodded. After this upgrade, the capacity has increased and the number of people attracted naturally increased. It seems that the quantitative change has finally led to a qualitative change. Miss Maid said, "Do you need to reduce the frequency?" Luaccio shook his head and laughed self-mockingly. "No, just follow this progress. With the speed of doing business, if there is no stable source of income, I will lose all my money sooner or later." Miss Maid just smiled. Except for the master, she was the one who knew the boss' economic situation best. Since the sacrifice of those evil souls sold by Su Zijuan, the master had become rich again. At this time, even if the master was in the mood to take another half-year vacation, it would not be a problem. In addition, although the voice of the master was still in the service stage, and it was not the time to collect the money. But according to the current situation, when the money could be collected, it would naturally be a rich income. In this case, let's reduce the impact to the minimum. Miss Maid naturally didn't want to trouble her master too much. "I'll change the program again and spread the entrance to the entire world's network. In this way, at least the time of qualitative change can be delayed a little." Based on the world's population of 7 or 8 billion people, there was still a long time before it would cause a panic after it was distributed to all parts of the world. "No need." Luaccio smiled and said, "As long as the entrance of this world is closed temporarily, it will be fine." "Master, you mean?" Yu was stunned, and then she thought of something and suddenly said, "Other worlds?" Luaccio whispered, "There should be a world with a similar level of civilization and even the state of the environment." The answer was yes. If this is the case, then we don't need to care about the growth rate anymore. Miss Maid smiled and said, "It seems that the standard of the automatic selection can be lowered. But this way, I'm afraid that the main server will start to expand. Since Master injected a huge amount of spiritual essence last time, the original server can't satisfy the self-evolution of the game world anymore. Then use this." Luaccio opened his palm at this moment. A diamond-shaped crystal emitted colorful light in the center of the boss's palm. Feeling the special aura emitted by this crystal, Yuye's eyes lit up slightly. "This is World Fragment." Luaccio smiled and said, "I just bought it from the altar. Okay, now I'm poor again." Miss May didn't care. As long as other world entrances were opened and the world fragments evolved, there would be countless souls entering the game. This kind of investment was a huge profit with little capital. It seems that Taiyanzi really made a great thing by accident. Miss Maid said softly, "Master, have you thought about it from the beginning?" Luaccio smiled and said, "Don't think that I'm so far-sighted. This is just an idea that slowly formed later. If I didn't experience Yin Wuyue's world, I wouldn't have so many ideas." While explaining, Luaccio suddenly had another idea in his mind. Every subworld had its own sub-manager, Alea. All the subworlds were meant to nurture a perfect breeding ground for a perfect world, all under the same system. In that case, what would happen if a self-evolving world outside of this system appeared? Chapter 12:14. Yuya's efficiency was not only because of her unimaginable knowledge, but also because of her ability to carry out tasks. In his impression, as long as he fulfilled his wish, this capable servant girl would always take care of things in the shortest time possible. When Luaccio became the boss on the first day, the first problem he faced was his survival time. But later he found that survival time was not really a problem for him. The previous boss seemed to have left nothing for Luaccio, but now he realized that Yu was actually the most precious thing he left behind. Looking at the servant girl's back, Luaccio smiled and waved his hand to turn on hologram again. But his phone received a message. It was a message from Song Yang. Do you have time to come out? Luochio thought for a while and replied, over there, on the snow-capped peak. In the boundless sea of clouds, the cold wind was howling. This was an extremely bad weather that could freeze people into ice in an instant. But if you ignore the bad weather, you would find that this was a pure white world, a pure land. In the local language, the word Jimu meant goddess. At an altitude of more than 8,000 meters, there should be no trace of people, but there was a figure sitting cross-legged on the snow-capped peak. Long Shural wiped her forehead and slowly exhaled a warm breath. The warm breath instantly froze the cold into ice. It's done. Long Shural twisted her neck. From the southernmost coastline to the northern prairie, from the eastern coast to the highest peak in the world. In such a short time, Shinryu almost didn't stop for a moment, and finally succeeded in temporarily locking the erupting aura in the area of Kelowna. In this way, the aura in Kelowna is probably getting stronger and stronger day by day. Although Longshaw did not want to let the guy outside take advantage of her aura, she was actually not sure whether it was a good idea or not. In such a confined environment, the aura in Kelowna was getting stronger and stronger day by day, which meant that the agency would find more and more newborns with abilities. It was even possible that there would be such a change among ordinary people. The collision between the transcendents and ordinary people would probably come earlier, right? Kelowna Shinryu bitterly smiled and suddenly felt very tired. On the snow-capped peak, she stood there alone and was as tired as a dog, but she couldn't find anyone to talk to. Find someone to share the burden with her? Impossible. There won't be anyone. She looked at the changes in the sea of clouds outside the snow-capped peak. The gathering and dispersing clouds were ethereal and shapeless, as if they had transformed into all things in the world. Then, they gradually converged into a hateful face. The true dragon of the divine prefecture was stunned at this moment. Then he gritted his teeth. His eyes seemed to be spitting fire as he punched through the air, breaking the endless sea of clouds. You're already here, and you still won't let me go. But she knew in her heart that what she saw in the clouds was just her subconscious action. After punching, Kelowna Shinryu suddenly became like a deflated balloon, lying on the snowy ground and staring at the blue sky in a daze. That damn profiteer is probably opening his shop again. Long Sharal muttered, I don't know what poor lambs will be slaughtered again. Damn it, did that damn profiteer do anything to Pianxian when I wasn't here? How could she be so careless? This question was instantly magnified in Kelowna Shinryu's mind. No, she had to go back immediately. When Kelowna Shinryu made up her mind to go back immediately, on the other side of the snow-capped peak, several figures climbed up at a very fast speed and soon arrived at the junction. Seeing these figures stop in front of her, Longshaw couldn't help but frown. These people wore red robes and held tantric magic weapons, murmuring along the way. This world's highest mountain connected Kelowna and another religious country, and these guys in red robes were obviously the monks of the religious country on the other side. Obviously, these monks didn't expect to see a beautiful woman on this vast snowy mountain, because they practiced the Mahayana secret method and Rouge was just a skeleton to them. They didn't care about her appearance. Hello. The leader of the monks spoke not very authentic Kelowna modern Chinese. Do you know why the aura suddenly stopped? Longshaw tilted her head and looked at these monks, saying indifferently, I don't know. The monks looked at each other, and the monk who spoke first said, Recently, there has been a continuous flow of spirit chi coming from the goddess mountain. We are very happy. Benefactress, if you know why it suddenly stopped, can you tell us? We are very grateful. I said I don't know. Long Shirwa frowned. If you don't have time, go back to your nest, and don't come out casually. Look at you. You are ascetics on the other side of the mountain, right? Cultivation is not easy. You should cherish it. The monks frowned, and another one sighed. To be honest, we have been practicing hard for decades, and we haven't made any progress in recent decades. Coincidentally, the aura is radiating, and we seem to have loosened up. This is very important to us. Please tell us. Long Shirua sneered, What? This aura came from Kelowna, and now it has stopped. Do you want to snatch it? Lady, everything in the world is equal. and the aura is a gift from nature. How can we snatch it? The leader shook his head. Longshaw said disdainfully, "If my family dug a well, would I use it to raise you?" The monks frowned, but it was still the leader who said, "Female benefactor, we are just inquiring and have no intention of arguing with you. How about this? Since female benefactor is unwilling to speak, we will investigate on our own." Another monk said, "This goddess mountain seems to be trapped by a layer of seal, which prevents the aura from spreading." As he said that, the magic tool in the monk's hand suddenly turned, and a golden light shot out, directly towards the snowy peak. The true dragon of the divine land had sealed the spirit chi within the boundaries of the land of the divine land. Naturally, it could not use a strong seal everywhere. If one were to divide the spirit chi, one could say that each place was very weak. Seeing that the monk wanted to directly break the seal here, the Kelowna Shinryu, who was in a bad mood, didn't intend to be polite and directly slapped the monk's golden light, shattering it. Seeing that, the monks weren't angry, and instead smiled. "It seems that the sudden disappearance of the aura has something to do with you, lady. I am the one who sealed the aura." Longshaw said indifferently, "I can give this aura to whoever I want. It's not up to you to tell me what to do. But if I find out that you dare to freeload, don't blame me for not being polite." One arrogant lass. Among the monks, a tall man with a fat head, big ears, and a face full of beard coldly snorted at this time. This person had become a monk halfway through his life. Because of his extraordinary talent, he made rapid progress in the cultivation of the secret method. However, the roots of the mortal world had not been completely exhausted. Although the irritable temperament before becoming a monk had faded a lot over the years, it still remained. In addition, the secret technique he cultivated was the path of destruction, and although he was supported by the Mahayana secret technique, he would inadvertently reveal a trace of violent aura. Since this aura is glowing, it is the path of nature. Its appearance will change the concentration of aura in the world, and for cultivators like us who are trapped, it is no less than good news. Noisy, Longshaw faintly showed a green vein on her forehead, and with a wave of her hand, she slapped the monk's face. The fat monk instantly fell to the ground, spitting out blood. The fat monk's ferocity was instantly aroused, and he directly sat on the ground, clasped his hands together, and began to mutter. Behind him, an illusory figure slowly appeared. This shadow had many strange images, including the image of Linjia, the image of terror, the image of gentleness, the image of Superman, and the image of three faces. All of a sudden, endless Sanskrit chants sounded on the snowy peak. Noisy. Longshaw was instantly furious. "Not to mention a half-baked monk like you. Even if your Shiva dares to come, I will beat him into a pig's head. Get out of here!" A dragon's roar sounded. On the snowy peak, a huge cloud gathered crazily like the center of a hurricane, and in the center, there was a ferocious dragon head condensed by the cloud. At this moment, the dragon head looked down, and it was actually bigger than the entire snowy peak. The Sanskrit chants instantly disappeared, and all the strange images behind the fat monk were directly broken. He spat out a mouthful of blood and directly fainted on the snowy ground. "You are Kelowna Shinryu." The leading monk's expression changed dramatically, and his heart beat wildly as he looked at the huge dragon head on the snowy peak. "Get out of here." The leading monk was sweating profusely. "None. Kelowna Shinryu, I'm sorry to disturb you. We didn't mean to offend you. Please forgive us." As he spoke, he quickly helped the fainted monk up, and it seemed that he was planning to retreat. Longshaw snorted coldly. "Don't let me know that you dare to sneak into my territory and steal my aura, or else I'll kill my way into your kingdom and tear down all your idols from small to big." The monks didn't dare to say anything, so they could only lower their heads and leave bitterly in the wind and snow. Kelowna Shinryu was invincible. This legend was not only limited to Kelowna. Humph! Seeing these monks leave, Longshaw snorted coldly, and then slowly flew away from the snowy peak. If it wasn't an extreme situation, she wouldn't really go to other people's territory and tear down all their idols. In the inherited memories of the true dragon, the three figures behind the religion of these monks were extremely petty, even in the heavenly mythological system. If they really tore down the statues, the other party might descend as a god. When that happened, there would naturally be no lack of trouble. However, she wasn't afraid. If they dared to descend, she would beat them back. It wasn't like she hadn't beaten them before. Damn, profiteer, don't let me know that you attacked Agile when I wasn't here. She's just a kid. Come at me if you dare. In the end, she disappeared into the snowy mountains. Soon, the monks returned to the place where they cultivated ascetically. In this polluted world, the aura was scarce. Only in these inaccessible places, there was still a trace of pure aura. From the place where they cultivated, they could see the goddess mountain. It was so close, but it felt like they were in two different worlds. How Su area? The leading monks sighed in despair. After the aura was cut off, this place was once again in a state of lack of aura. In fact, the aura in this place was not bad, and it was a place that they found after much effort. It was a pity that after experiencing the feeling of endless spiritual energy coming from the goddess mountain, this relatively good place now seemed so unbearable. His injuries are very serious. Another monk shook his head. I'm afraid he won't be able to recover in a short time. If he fully recovers, I'm afraid his 100 years of cultivation will be ruined. I didn't expect Kelowna Shinryu to be so terrifying. With just a wave of her aura, the Mahayana secret technique that we cultivated for 100 years couldn't even withstand a single blow. He couldn't help but feel disheartened. Stupid guy. Suddenly, a deep voice rang out in the cave. The monks were shocked at this moment, and a strong feeling of palpitations made them involuntarily kneel on the ground. The chubby Su area, who was lying on the stone bed, slowly floated up and sat cross-legged in midair. All sorts of strange phenomena appeared on his body, and all sorts of manifestations descended. Sovereign. The monks instantly realized something, and they immediately prostrated themselves on the ground. Please save Su area. Su area slowly opened his eyes, which were flashing with colorful light. I already know what happened. Su area is my believer, and I will naturally save him. Thank you, Sovereign. The monks were overjoyed. Su area snorted coldly. I'll remember this. This vile dragon only dares to be so arrogant because he has Kelowna as his backer. Sovereign, could it be that even if you personally descend? The monks couldn't help but recall what that Kelowna Shinryu had said. Their faces turned pale, and they asked in terror. If I personally descend, I'll definitely be rejected by the world will, and I won't be able to release all my power. Su area said calmly. However, to deal with this vile dragon, there's no need for me to personally descend. This vile dragon has no one to rely on and is nothing to fear. Sovereign? At this moment, Sia slowly closed his palm. When he opened it again, a black bead appeared in his hand. The bead slowly floated to the front of the leading monk. This is? Su area said indifferently. There's no need to rush to deal with that sinful dragon. This is a lump of my divine will of origin. Plant it in a spirit child and assist the spirit child in spreading my teachings. The monks' faces changed slightly, and they couldn't help but raise their heads. Su area said slowly, You only need to do as I say. There's no need to ask too much. Yes, the voice stopped, and the strange phenomenon in the cave disappeared. Su area directly fell onto the stone bed, within the divine kingdom in the void. At this moment, he slowly opened his eyes and muttered to himself, Jehovah and Fention have gone to explore the unknown origin and have yet to return. This is a good opportunity for me to develop my believers. Jehovah has suppressed my religion in many worlds, and it's time for a change. There must be a great secret in this subworld. Among the countless subworlds, only this place has Kelowna Shinryu. So it must be different. At this moment, in a majestic palace, hundreds of beautiful girls slowly knelt down, and the sound of Sanskrit resounded all around. Its terrifying appearance changed, and it had already turned into the appearance of Lin Jia. Yin 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 PS1. Looking through the reward records, I found the cute owner ZWX98. As usual, she bowed her head to the capitalist boss. Chapter 12:15. The square was densely packed with umbrellas, and the tables under the umbrellas were almost full of people. Such a scene was very common on Sundays. Luocio walked through the gaps between the crowd and the tables and easily found Song Ying. She should have been here for some time. She had ordered a cup of iced black tea, and the straw was a little bit out of shape. She was holding her chin and looking at the family of three at the table next to her. Her legs were slightly kicked under the table, and she seemed to be a little absent-minded. You like to drink cold things when it's cold? Are all your opening lines so weird? Song Ying turned around and seemed to be a little reproachful. Yes, I like to eat ice cream in winter. Is there a problem? Luocio sat down and said indifferently, girls should be careful to keep warm. It's easy to have cold wombs if you eat cold things in winter. Cold wombs, cold wombs. Miss Ying's ears inexplicably heated up. As a woman, of course, she knew that cold wombs had many meanings, but this kind of topic was mostly between girls, right? Of course, there were also situations like mother and daughter. Was she afraid that she would not be able to have children in the future? Luocio, who did not know that Miss Ying's thoughts had drifted away, looked around and found that there were Song Ying's bodyguards sitting around, and there were even a few unfamiliar faces. There seems to be more people here, Luocio said casually. What more what? Song Ying was stunned. She followed Luocio's gaze and suddenly said, oh, there are more people at home. There will be another group of people coming in a few days. Question mark. Luocio blinked. Song Ying crossed her slender legs under the table and crossed them again. She leaned her hands on the table and leaned forward. I'm planning to invest here. It's Grandpa's idea. He's been looking for a suitable place since yesterday. Luocio was stunned. The Song family intends to develop here? Song Ying nodded. Yes, this has always been my grandfather's wish, but it hasn't been possible in the past. You should know about the Song family situation, right? Luocio nodded. The Song family's influence in South America was not small. On the surface, the Song dynasty group had always been ranked among the top 500 companies in the world. In private, the Song family also had its own armed group. In the words of the Tao, that is, old Master Song had always had the intention of washing his hands in a golden basin and returning to his roots. However, the Song family's background was too dangerous, so he was rejected. There's a very good opportunity this time. Song Ying lowered her voice. I don't know what Song Howren did to make the government acquiesce to our investment. Boss Luo was silent for a moment. Song Ying probably didn't know, and he didn't know before this, but in just a few seconds, he already knew the cause and effect. Boss Luo would use the paid intelligence ability when it was necessary. He would never be vague in this aspect. This matter started from the beginning of the Mount Tai incident. That is, the Song family, the Zhang family, and the Suzuki Kai of Japan cooperated to secretly explore the Imperial Mausoleum. Let's not talk about the process in the middle for now. But in the end, under Song Howren's instructions, those Tao demons who were captured by the Heaven's Heart lineage and prepared to be used for the Lord of Mount Tai Prefecture's sacrificial rites were indeed saved because of him. In just one night, more than half of the Tao demons in Kelowna owed him a favor. This was probably the first time in history. After the Mount Tai incident, Song Howren started to work in the disaster area in the name of international humanitarian relief. As for the Song family's opportunity to get back to China, it was also because of this young Master Song's favor. Therefore, several Tao sects and Tao demons jointly submitted a petition, which forced the administration to face this problem seriously. In the end, after a series of discussions, they finally came to a conclusion. This was also the reason why Song Ying started to look for a new location for the company in this place. If that's the case, why did you choose this place? Boss Luo asked curiously, knowing the cause and effect. Song Ying said, do you really not know, or are you pretending not to know? Don't you know why you chose this place? Luocio smiled. I think the life in my heart is quite good. Song Ying shrugged. That's what you think, but my grandpa doesn't think so. This time, I called you out mainly to tell you that when the company's affairs are almost settled, you can go to work. Grandpa said that the new company is for you to play with. I'm just your assistant. Luocio shook his head. Thank you for your kindness, but I don't intend to do that. Besides, I'm leaving next month. The school over there is about to start. Song Ying seemed to have expected Luocio's answer. It doesn't matter. You can take the position first and come back to accept it after you finish your studies. Don't worry, when you come back, the new company will be almost on track. It won't be as difficult as you think. Besides, don't you still have me? In fact, Song Ying didn't mention one more thing. That was the choice to start development in this city was due to the fact that Luocio grew up here, but it was also partly because of the Zhang family. Since the Zhang family withdrew from the stage of the capital several decades ago, they had been using the male side as the stage. The helmsman of the Zhang family, Zhang Lilanfeng, also lived in this city. Although the Song family had a strong financial background, it was still a foreign power after all. If it wanted to gain a foothold in the domestic environment, it needed a springboard. And the Zhang family was the springboard and partner that Song Tianyi chose. Firstly, the Song family and the Zhang family had been in business contact for a long time. Secondly, the two families had established a relationship in the chaotic era of the last century. It seems that I can't refuse, Luocio said indifferently. Song Ying said grumpily, only you feel like you've suffered a loss. If it were someone else, wouldn't they be happy? Luocio didn't intend to accept the new company, but he didn't officially refuse. If he refused this time, there would be a next time, unless he took the initiative to erase the relationship between him and the Song family. But he didn't intend to end this relationship for the time being. Let's do as you say. Luocio nodded at last. Good boy. Miss Song Ying smiled sweetly. Come on. Sister will buy you something to eat, by the way. Which school did you go to? I haven't asked about it before. St. Andrew's University. Song Ying was stunned. Then she opened her eyes wide. Wasn't this the school that the vixen of the Zhong family graduated from? Of course, it was also the school that Song Ying used to study in. Is there a problem? Song Ying chuckled and said, I said it's not my fault. You chose it yourself. No matter what, I'm older than you, but I'm sure you won't be happy to call me younger brother. But you volunteered to be my junior brother, as if she had won some kind of victory. Luocio couldn't help but smile. You can open a company, and you can give me a position, but I hope you won't disturb her life. Ren Xiling? Song Ying was stunned and thought about it. She couldn't help but think of that night. Luocio's terrifying eyes that made her afraid to breathe. He looks gentle, but he still has a very manly side. Sister, come, be careful, watch the stairs. In front of the rehabilitation center, Zhao Lu was supporting Zhao Xiaoqin, carefully walking down the stairs. Although it was strenuous, she could still walk with her legs. Zhang Xiaoqin's face was sweaty, but she also had a smile. At the bottom of the stairs, a young man walked past. The young man stopped and looked at the siblings. When Zhao Lu saw him, he was stunned at first. Then he said in surprise, Mingming, why are you here? Sister, this is my classmate, Chen Mingming. I'm just passing by to buy some things. Chen Mingming simply said hello. Of course, he couldn't just be passing by. He just happened to pass by at this time. Your sister seems to be recovering well. Chen Mingming looked at Zhang Xiaoqin and nodded politely. Although Zhao Li's matter wasn't deliberately made public, after Zhang Xiaoqin's accident, there were some rumors in the school. So, there were many students who knew about Zhao Li's family problems, let alone his classmates. In fact, after Zhang Xiaoqin's accident, Zhao Li didn't go to school for a week. At that time, the class counselor organized a visit and sent some money, and Chen Mingming was among them. Thank you. Zhang Xiaoqin smiled. Zhao Li said, I didn't expect to see you again. I saw the class group yesterday and heard from the counselor that you've finished your withdrawal. I heard you're going abroad soon, right? Have you set the time? The flight is next Wednesday. So soon. Zhao Li seemed to be regretful. He didn't have many good friends in school. Especially during this period of time, he had to take care of Zhang Xiaoqin, so he didn't have time to socialize. As for Chen Mingming, Zhao Li felt that he was one of the few people he could get close to. After all, during this period of time, he was not bullied by Dong Xiaofeng several times directly or indirectly because of Chen Mingming. You're Li's classmate. Why don't you come to our house for dinner tonight? Zhang Xiaoqin glanced at him. She knew that Zhao Li didn't have many friends. It was rare to see a classmate. Judging from the situation, they had a good relationship. So, she took the initiative to invite him. Hearing that, Zhao Li smiled and said, "Yes, come to my house for dinner tonight. Just treat it as me sending you off. After all, I don't know if I'll have the chance to see you again in the future." Many people were like this. After graduating from high school, they never saw each other again. We seem to only be able to occasionally hear some news about him or her in the chatter of classmates. Maybe we know that he or she is married and has a child, or maybe we know that he or she is living a poor life now. Chen Mingming nodded. In the conference room, Sir Ma was holding a ballpoint pen with his lips and looking at the energy-saving lamp on the ceiling in despair. When there was no major breakthrough in the case, everyone was like this. Zhou Yuxing was also tapping the table with his fingers. As for the other colleagues, they were either looking up information on the internet or looking down at documents. It's a little strange. Suddenly, a female colleague muttered. Ma Haod, who had sharp ears, turned his eyes and asked, "What's strange?" The female colleague said, "I checked Wang Liang and Wu Rong's travel records again. After combining them, I found that they bought train tickets to City X together on November 19th last year." Sir Ma said angrily, "Didn't we already know?" They left on the second day after Wu Rong and Wang Liang made a scene. Then, Wang Liang came back a few days later. The female colleague said, "Yes, Wang Liang came back from City X on November 23rd. Then, according to the records, Wu Rong came back on November 25th and left alone on November 29th. And then, the female colleague said, "Why didn't they come back from City X together on November 23rd? Maybe Wang Liang had something to do and came back first? What's so strange about that?" Ma Hao shook his head. Suddenly, there was a rush of footsteps. Lin Feng rushed into the conference room with a document in his hand. "Captain Ma, Captain Zhou, the time of death of Wu Rong and Wang Liang has been determined." This immediately caused everyone to perk up. Lin Feng looked at everyone and said seriously, "According to Section Chief Nan's judgment, Wu Rong's time of death should be between November 18th and 22nd last year. Because the body has been frozen for too long, there are some errors, but it should be within these few days. As for Wang Liang's time of death, it is estimated to be between December 1st and 2nd. In other words, Wu Rong was killed before Wang Liang." Zhou Yuxing frowned, then suddenly looked at the female colleague from before. Sir Ma suddenly quivered. He looked at the female colleague and hurriedly asked, "You just said, when did Wu Rong come back?" "The bus on November 25th. "And when did she leave?" "The bus on November 29th. The female colleague opened her mouth, but, according to the forensic doctor's judgment, Wu Rong should have been killed during this time. Right? Based on the timing, could it be that Wang Liang was the culprit? But shouldn't the murderer be the same person?" Ma Hao and Zhou Yuxing had more experience. At this time, the two captains looked at each other. Zhou Yuxing said first, "Old Ma, it seems that our initial investigation direction was wrong." Ma Hao nodded. "These two cases, I'm afraid that they shouldn't be solved together. Our house is small, don't mind." Zhang Xiaoqin supported herself with her walking stick and poured a cup of hot water for Chen Mingming. Then she said, "Sit down first. I'll go to the room to put some things." As for Zhao Lu, he was preparing the ingredients he just bought from the supermarket in the kitchen, preparing to show his skills in the evening. Chen Mingming looked at the old and crowded house, but it was neatly tidied, feeling very comfortable. After that, Zhang Xiaoqin went into the room, probably to change clothes. Chen Mingming stood up and walked around the living room, looking at the furnishings in the house. At this time, the sound of chopping came from the kitchen, which was quite loud. Chen Mingming walked to the door of the kitchen and asked casually, "What are you doing?" "Chopping ribs, preparing to make rib soup." Zhao Lu turned his head back with a kitchen knife stained with bone fragments in his hand. At the same time, there was a slight smile on his face. But his face seemed to have been accidentally stained with the blood of the bones and flesh, so it was a little red. Bang! Chapter 12:16. Wipe it. Chen Mingming took some tissues from the living room. Zhao noticed that his face was stained with blood. He smiled embarrassedly and took the tissues to wipe it. Chun Mingming glanced at the neatly chopped ribs on the chopping board and said casually, "Your knife skills are good. Have you considered becoming a chef?" Zhao laughed and said, "That's all I have. I can cook at home, but if I really want to be a chef in a restaurant, I'm afraid I'll die of laughter." Chun Mingming nodded and casually leaned against the refrigerator door. He chatted like a classmate. "Have you thought about what you want to do in the future?" It was a very normal topic for students to talk about their future. Zhao nodded and looked out of the window. He seemed to have some hope. "Lawyer? I originally majored in law." "To uphold justice?" Chun Mingming asked curiously. Zhao smiled shyly. He picked up the kitchen knife and swept the bones aside. Then he began to cut the ginger slices. "Do you feel stupid? Lawyers who uphold justice can't make much money, right? Domestic lawyers are very different from foreign lawyers." Chun Mingming said indifferently. "They're also different from the lawyers in Hong Kong movies." Zhao nodded and did not say anything. After cutting the ginger slices, he began to pick the vegetables. "What about you? What do you want to do in the future? Your profiling results are so good. Are you planning to follow in your father's footsteps? We'll talk about it later." Chun Mingming lowered his head and thought about something. When Chun Mingming's parents separated and later divorced, they were very low-key. The students did not know about Chun Mingming's family situation. "That's true. Anyway, there's still a lot of time. Slowly think about it." Zhao nodded. Chun Mingming glanced at the refrigerator behind him and then opened the door. He said coldly, "This refrigerator is old. It's about time to replace it. Otherwise, it will be a security risk." His hand that was picking vegetables suddenly stopped. Then he continued. Zhao turned his head and smiled. "If it can still be used, then use it first. If it can't be repaired, then fix it. But thank you for your reminder. Do you want to wait outside? You are a guest. There is no reason for you to stand in the kitchen." "It's okay. I'm sitting." Chun Mingming nodded and took a bottle of mineral water from the refrigerator. "I'll drink this." "Okay." Dinner was soon ready, and the siblings and Chun Mingming ate casually. Chun Mingming was a quiet person. Zhang Xiaoqin, on the other hand, was quite cheerful after pulling herself together. They talked about a lot of things. She said that it had been a long time since a guest came to the house, and it had also been a long time since it was lively. After dinner, Chun Mingming brought up the topic of leaving. Zhang Xiaoqin asked Zhao Lu to send him off. She was really a hospitable person. "Your sister is doing well now." Downstairs, Chun Mingming said with some emotion, "I remember the last time the class came to visit. She was quite silent." "That's right. I'm actually prepared for a long struggle." Zhao heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at the night sky and said, "That night, my sister suddenly spoke to me. She even took the initiative to say that she wanted to go to rehabilitation training. I was so happy." Chun Mingming casually asked, "Does your sister know about the dismembered body case?" Zhao Li's smile froze. Then he nodded. After the incident, 2 police officers came to ask about it. He wasn't surprised that Chun Mingming knew about the relationship between Zhang Xiaoqin and Wang Liang. Firstly, it was because Chun Mingming had come to visit with his classmates and knew about Zhang Xiaoqin. Secondly, Chun Mingming's father was a police officer in the city. It wasn't strange that Chun Mingming, as a family member, knew about such a big case like the dismembered body case. Chun Mingming nodded. "With your sister's relationship with Wang Liang, it's only a matter of time before they come looking for you." Zhao nodded. Chun Mingming said, "Don't worry. The murderer will be caught sooner or later. It's just a matter of time. Don't let these things affect your current life." Zhao nodded silently. He said subconsciously, "From what you're saying, the police have some clues?" Chun Mingming said indifferently, "These things won't be revealed casually. Even if you ask me, I don't know." "That's true." Zhao nodded. Chun Mingming said, "But justice has a long arm. No matter how careful the murderer is, there will definitely be flaws left at the scene. It's possible that they haven't been discovered yet. We've read a lot of cases. You should know." Zhao smiled and looked at Chun Mingming. "Let's not talk about this. You're leaving next Wednesday. I probably can't go to the airport to send you off. If you have time, remember to come back and visit. There will be a chance." Chun Mingming smiled. Zhao Lu said curiously, "It's the first time I see you smile. It's really not easy." The girl in the library also said the same. Chun Mingming was stunned. Then, he nodded and left without saying anything. "Have you left?" Zhao Lu went upstairs. As soon as he opened the door, he saw Zhang Xiaoqin tidying up the dining table. He quickly walked up to her and said, "I'll do it. Sis, you go and rest. Go take a shower. You've been tired all day." All right." Zhang Xiaoqin nodded and smiled. "I'll do it myself." Seeing that Zhang Xiaoqin had walked in the bathroom, Zhao Lu put down the things in his hand and sat down. He suddenly took out his mobile phone and opened it, but his fingers stopped for a moment on the interface, as if he was hesitating. The next moment, Zhao Lu gritted his teeth and put down his mobile phone. Time passed by little. Zhao Lu looked at the clock on the wall. He suddenly stood up. He walked to the bathroom door and knocked twice. "Fun." Zhang Xiaoqin's voice came from the bathroom. "I'm almost done. Wait for a while." "No, sister. I'm telling you that I'm going out." "Going out? Where can you go out at this time?" "There's no more detergent at home. I'm going to buy some." Zhao Lu said casually. "I'll see if there's anything missing." "Sister, do you still have toothpaste?" "Toothpaste? There's still half a tube," Zhang Xiaoqin said. "Then you go. Be careful." "Okay, sister," Zhao Lu said and slowly sighed. He didn't wear his shoes and socks. Instead, he went to the kitchen and poured out the remaining half a tube of detergent on the cupboard. Then, he took the key and went out. Zhao Lu hurriedly went downstairs and looked around downstairs. Then he wrapped his clothes and put on his hood. Then, he glanced at a public bicycle parked downstairs and rode away. Under an old tree not far away, a figure came out after Zhao Lu left. Chun Mingming looked at the figure that was about to disappear at the corner of the street. Deep in thought, since it was very likely that these were two different cases, they couldn't just focus on one of them. In the afternoon, the special case team was divided into two groups. One group was led by Ma Haud and rushed to City X as fast as possible. Zhou Yuxing was mainly responsible for Wang Liang's case. Zhou Yuxing hadn't heard from Chun Mingming for half a day. Except at noon, when Chun Mingming finished looking at Wang Liang's workplace and called to report, he didn't contact him again. After lunch, his wife called to say that Wang Liang didn't come home. Zhou Yuxing couldn't help but worry. Just as he was about to call to ask about it, a colleague in the team knocked on the door and walked in. "Captain Zhou, we found something." "Oh." Zhou Yuxing suddenly became energetic and quickly asked, "What did you find?" "We found the last person who saw Wang Liang," the colleague said excitedly. "Well, where is this person now?" The colleague said, "It's a coincidence that this person is in the detention center." "Huh." At the same time, he said, "It's like this. Because Wang Liang didn't have any relatives in the city, and we didn't even know what he was doing when he was killed, we used the radio and newspapers to release a police report, hoping that someone who could provide us with clues would appear. I didn't expect it to really appear." "In the detention center? Who is it?" The colleague said, "It's a private loan." "Captain Zhou, you know that these people don't have clean backgrounds. This guy was arrested because when he came to collect debts, he got into a fight with the creditor and injured him. Later, he called the police and was arrested." "Private loan." Zhou Yuxing tapped his finger on the table. "Wang Liang borrowed money from this guy's company?" "That's right." The colleague sat down. According to this person's confession, he saw Wang Liang on December 1st, and that time was the time of Wang Liang's death, according to Forensic Nan's judgment. "I want to interrogate this person personally," Zhou Yuxing said in a deep voice. In the interrogation room, a man in an orange prison uniform with a shaved head and tattoos on his hands was brought in by two uniformed police officers and then pressed on a stool. After confirming the basic information, Zhou Yuxing sized him up and went straight to the point. "You said you saw Wang Liang on December 1st? "Yes, sir." The man nodded. Zhou Yuxing said, "Why are you so sure it was December 1st? The man said, "Our company always repaid the loan on the 1st of the following month. This Wang Liang happened to be on the list of people who defaulted, so I went to look for him on that day. That's why I remember it very clearly." "Tell me about the situation," Zhou Yuxing said casually. "I remember that day." The man began to recall. "It was a coincidence that day. I saw Wang Liang on the street, so I caught him in the alley. Brother Long, let's talk nicely, let's talk nicely. In the alley, the man called Brother Long grabbed Wang Liang's hand and pressed his head against the wall. He sneered. Good boy. You're quite good at hiding, aren't you? How dare you hide from my Brother Long's debt? You don't want to stay here anymore, do you? Brother Long, let go of me first. We can talk slowly. I'll definitely pay you back. Don't worry, okay? Brother Long snorted and patted Wang Liang's head. You have money, right? You have money to pay others, but you don't have money to pay me back, right? Of course not. Who told you that? I'll definitely pay you back as soon as I have the money. Don't think I don't know. Brother Long patted him hard again. I don't know who lent you money in this area. Someone told me that you've paid back hundreds of thousands of yuan in the past few days, right? You just don't want to pay me back, right? Don't tell me you're still going to pay me back. Stop hitting, Brother Long. Stop hitting. This guy called Brother Long was quite meticulous. He actually stretched out his hands and simulated the situation at that time. I didn't expect this kid to suddenly get angry. He stepped on me and pushed me to the ground. Brother Long said angrily. I was so angry at that time. When I saw this kid running away, I didn't think too much. I picked up a bottle and threw it at him. I didn't expect it to be so accurate. It directly blew up this kid's head. And then, Zhou Yuxing glared at him angrily. Brother Long shrugged. This bastard didn't stop. I chased him all the way, but he still got away. I was thinking of catching him at his workplace, but I didn't expect to be caught the next day. Sir, do you think this counts as a meritorious deed? Can my sentence be commuted? Zhou Yuxing said expressionlessly. I don't know about that, but according to what you just said, you're suspected of using violence against others. There's enough evidence. Sir, I remembered wrongly. I was just chatting with him. I didn't hit him. I really didn't. Zhou Yuxing shook his head and waved his hand. Take him away. After that, Zhou Yuxing and his colleagues left the interrogation room and started to discuss in the corridor. The lights in the corridor flickered, but it was not stable. This guy called Brother Long shouldn't be lying, Zhou Yuxing said firmly. Yes, but it seems that he wasn't the last person to see Wang Liang. His colleague nodded. Zhou Yuxing suddenly stopped. Go and check. See if Wang Liang really did return a lot of money between November 23rd and December 1st last year, as Brother Long said. Yes. Okay. His colleague nodded. Zhou Yuxing seemed to have thought of something. Wait a minute. You also check Wu Rong's account to see if there was any large amount of money spent. Captain Zhou, you mean? You go and check first. Let me know the results as soon as possible. Zhou Yuxing thought for a while and said, It's best to be detailed. Any spending records and transfer records must be clear. Okay. Zhao Lu rode his bicycle all the way and stopped in front of a supermarket. However, he didn't enter the supermarket. Instead, he called for a motorcycle that was used to solicit customers at night. Not long after, the motorcycle stopped in front of an old street. After Zhao Lu paid in cash, he lowered his head and walked into the old street. He chose a place with fewer people. Not long after, he stopped in front of an old house. He didn't go up. Instead, he hid in a corner downstairs and looked up. Zhao Lu stared for a moment. Hesitation flashed in his eyes. In the end, he gritted his teeth and chose to leave. However, what he didn't expect was that when he turned around, he saw a figure standing under the streetlights. Chun Mingming. Ming, why are you here? Zhao Li's expression froze. Chun Mingming slowly approached under the streetlights. He didn't say anything and just looked into Zhao Li's eyes. This made Zhao Lu subconsciously take a step back. Do you have anything to say to me? Chun Mingming sighed and asked in a low voice. Zhao Lu slowly took a breath and then smiled. What a coincidence. Are you here to take a look too? After hearing what you said tonight, I couldn't help but be curious and wanted to come here to take a look to see where this scumbag died. Chun Mingming nodded and said indifferently, In that case, let's go up and take a look. After saying that, Chun Mingming walked up the stairs without waiting for Zhao Lu. Chapter 12:17. In front of Wang Liang's rental apartment, Chun Mingming stopped and looked down the stairs. The corridor lights of the old building flickered on and off. Because of the discovery of the corpse, The original residents of the building had moved away in the past few days. Even the slightest sound of footsteps could be heard clearly at this moment. Finally, Zhao Lu appeared in Chun Mingming's sight. He touched the handrail of the stairs and looked up. He walked up step by step expressionlessly. Finally, Zhao Lu walked up the stairs and stood next to Chun Mingming. He began to speak. His face was not as stiff as it was when he went upstairs, as if he was afraid. "This isn't good. It's sealed." Chun Mingming did not mind and tore off the seal. He came with Zhou Yuxing once and put a new seal on when he left. Seeing Chun Mingming tear off the seal, Zhao Lu opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but he swallowed his words. But then, Chun Mingming took out the key and opened the door of the rental apartment. Zhao Lu could no longer keep calm and said in shock, "You, how did you get the key? Come in." Chun Mingming opened the door and said casually. Then, he pressed the button in front of the door and turned on the lights inside the apartment. When he entered the door, Chun Mingming took off his shoes and put them aside before walking in. Zhao Lu hesitated for a few seconds. He had countless questions in his heart, but thinking that he had followed him here, he took a deep breath and walked in. He did not take off his shoes and just closed the door softly. When Zhao Lu walked into the apartment, he saw Chun Mingming leaning against a freezer in the middle of the living room and looking at him. Zhao Lu was about to speak, but Chun Mingming spoke first. "How about we do homework?" "Homework?" Zhao Lu was slightly stunned. Chun Mingming nodded. "It's like homework given by a teacher. Let's deduce what happened here at the time of the crime." Zhao Lu said, "Mingming, stop playing. Leave this to the police. We're just students. We're nothing. Did you borrow the key from your dad? Or did you steal it?" "Don't worry. I got the key through proper channels." Chun Mingming said indifferently, "There won't be any consequences for trespassing. Let's continue with the homework we were talking about earlier." "I don't have time to be crazy with you." Zhao Li's face darkened. "I have something to do. I'll leave first." Chun Mingming said, "You don't want the police to know that you came here alone at night, right? Not only did you come here, but you also deliberately parked your bicycle in front of the supermarket. You're planning to cycle back from the supermarket when you go back, right?" Zhao Lu turned around. After a moment of silence, he frowned and said, "You haven't left?" Chun Mingming didn't answer. He just continued, "This is the first scene where the body was found. The deceased is Wang Liang. His body was buried in this freezer. His body had been cut into pieces by the murderer and was incomplete. So far, there are still several parts of the body that have not been found. It is presumed that they have been taken away, so the cause of death is unknown. Let us deduce, if you were the murderer, what would you choose to commit the crime?" I said, "Stop playing." Zhao Lu said angrily. Chun Mingming suddenly walked over to the sofa and lay down. "If I were Wang Liang and I were to lie here and fall asleep, what would you do?" "Enough!" Zhao Lu almost roared. Chun Mingming was expressionless. He picked up the phone. "Although it seems a bit despicable, I think your sister wouldn't want you to be taken in for questioning." "You." Zhao Lu clenched his teeth, then slowly exhaled. "Fine, I'll play with you." He walked directly to the sofa and looked at Chun Mingming, who was lying on the sofa. Then he looked around. Zhao Lu saw a fruit knife on the coffee table. He picked it up abruptly and looked at Chun Mingming with a cold look in his eyes. "Do you use a knife?" Chun Mingming said indifferently. Zhao Lu said impatiently, "How would I know? I'll use whatever is convenient. Isn't this the way to kill someone in anger?" Chun Mingming said, "The body was cut into pieces. It's not convenient to use this knife. The kitchen has a lot of thick dishes." I said, "I didn't kill anyone." Zhao angrily interrupted. "This is just a deduction." Chun Mingming sat up and said, "Why are you so agitated?" Zhao sneered. "After being played by you, who wouldn't be agitated? What do you want to do? Do you want to play detective? Or are you kids from police families bored enough to prove yourselves? Do I deserve to be suspected just because I'm a victim's family?" Chun Mingming said, "It's not suitable to use a knife. If you use a knife, there will be blood stains. Whether the blood stains on the sofa, the bed, or the floor, there will be traces left. The police have many ways to find it." I said, "I'm not the murderer." Zhao Lu slowly put down his hand, but he didn't put down the knife. Chun Mingming said, "Actually, there's one more thing that hasn't been made public. The place where the body was cut into pieces was the bathroom. Zhao Lu subconsciously looked at the bathroom, then frowned. So what? Chun Mingming said slowly. The blood test showed that there were a lot of blood stains on the walls and ceiling of the bathroom. In addition, at the U-shaped pipe of the sewer, there were also some tissue remnants that belonged to Wang Liang. Zhao Lu suddenly said, "You're wrong. Why on the sofa in the living room? Why can't it be the bathroom?" At that time, Wang Liang was taking a shower. The murderer broke into the house and killed him in the bathroom. Chun Mingming still didn't answer, but said, "Killing in anger." "You mentioned it just now, right? Why do you think it's killing in anger?" Zhao Lu said with hatred. "How would I know? You're the one who forced me to do this. I only saw the fruit knife and picked it up casually. If it's not anger, what is it?" Chun Mingming shook his head. "It's not anger. It should be a planned murder. Do you see that freezer? That's the second freezer in Wang Liang's house. It's used to hide the body. Obviously, the murderer was prepared to hide the body. This has nothing to do with me." Zhao Lu snorted. Chun Mingming pressed on step by step. "In fact, the police have found the place where the freezer was sold. And from the owner, they know the characteristics of the person who bought the freezer." Zhao Li's eyes moved slightly. The fruit knife in his hand was shaking slightly at this moment. The police have found the person?" Zhao Li looked at Chun Mingming and seemed to hold his breath. "You're nervous," Chun Mingming suddenly said. "Who wouldn't be nervous? You brought me here and told me so many things." Zhao Lu took a deep breath. "I'm about to go crazy." Chun Mingming looked at Zhao Li's eyes and said, "Just now you said, that person? It's strange. Why didn't you call the murderer but that person?" Zhao Lu said indifferently, "Don't play this word game with me. That person, murderer, it's just a reference." Chun Mingming suddenly nodded. Looking at Zhao Lu, who was holding the knife, he stood up. "Okay, the homework is done. Let's go." Zhao Lu was startled. He had even made some preparations, but he didn't expect Chun Mingming to suddenly give up. This made him feel at a loss. "Mingming, what are you doing?" "Didn't I say? I'm just doing homework." Chun Mingming came to the door and took out a shoehorn from the shoe cabinet drawer. He put on his shoes. "I'm not a real policeman." "Aren't you leaving?" "I'm going to lock the door." Zhao Li's lips moved, but he finally put down the fruit knife. He kept silent and followed Chun Mingming all the way until they reached the intersection of the old street. At this time, there was no one around but some people walking around. Although it wasn't in full view, some people could still notice the slightest movement. Chun Mingming looked at the time. 37 minutes. "I'm afraid you'll have to pedal faster when you go back." Zhao Li couldn't figure out Chun Mingming's thoughts. He said hesitantly, "Tonight." Chun Mingming waved his hand and said, "You've actually been to the scene, right?" Zhao Li's breathing was obviously faster. Chun Mingming slowly stepped back and said, "When I said the murderer dismembered the body in the bathroom, you subconsciously looked over. Of course, you could say you noticed it when you came in. But I think some sudden reactions are uncontrollable, right? Anyway, no matter what I say tonight, I don't have any evidence. This is just my speculation. Who knows?" Zhao Lu opened his mouth. Chun Mingming turned around and walked to the dark place, finally saying, "I'll leave in a few days. I hope I can listen to your story before I leave." Zhao Lu didn't say anything, but turned around and left quickly and ran away. As Chun Mingming walked along the old streets, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. He turned around and raised his head, seeing two dim foreign lamps and an old pine door. Chun Mingming thought for a while, then pushed the door and walked in. In this spacious lobby, Chun Mingming saw the boss sitting in front of the bar counter with his back to him. A low sound came from the record player in the corner. Chun Mingming walked in front of the boss, looking around, and asked curiously, "Where's your servant girl?" Boss Luo said casually, "She's busy with something." Saying this, Boss Luo walked to the bar counter, his fingers sweeping over the cabinet. "Sit down. What do you want to drink?" Chun Mingming sat down, but didn't say what he wanted. He just asked, "Did I come here by myself? Or did you ask me to?" Luochio smiled. "Those who want to come will naturally come. This place won't refuse." Chun Mingming was silent for a moment, then said in a low voice, "Thank you for giving me this identity." "You're welcome," Luochio said softly. It's just for the convenience of the test. Since it's a test, naturally there are correct answers and methods. I just designed the questions, not unsolvable ones. Chun Mingming raised his head, looking straight at the boss. Zhao may not be the murderer. Luoqiu smiled slightly. Chun Mingming said again, but he may know who the murderer is. Otherwise, you wouldn't give me such a hint on the parchment. But this kind of hint can easily lead to my subconscious to make a wrong judgment. So this hint is to confuse the information, right? Luoqiu said, if the test is not difficult, naturally it will lose its original meaning. In fact, you're making good progress. Chun Mingming frowned subconsciously. He didn't think that there was anything special about this kind of progress under the premise of the hint. He felt that the boss was referring to something else. There were 2 questions in this test. The first one was to help his father solve the case, and the second one was progress. Was it referring to the second question? Chun Mingming sighed slowly and suddenly smiled bitterly. Sure enough, it's 2 completely unequal amounts of information. In the face of such a huge gap in information, I can only feel a deep sense of powerlessness when facing you. Luoqiu didn't deny. Indeed, I'm not necessarily smarter than anyone. Chun Mingming said, this is probably the charm of information. Putting this information aside, if you and I were at the same level of information, how would you judge this case? Luoqiu began to mix the wine. Using the red dust mixing technique he learned from Miss Maid, the invigilator won't end well. Chun Mingming's eyes suddenly brightened. This test doesn't seem to restrict my ability to buy information. I can choose to buy information directly to help me complete the test, right? Luoqiu smiled. Are you planning to buy information? Chun Mingming shook his head. You didn't say that cheating is not allowed, but you also didn't say that cheating is allowed. It's reasonable for the invigilator to expel the cheating person from the test room. The mixing of red dust was almost completed. Boss Luo seemed to be in a good mood. He looked at the final product, slowly pouring it into the glass, and appeared to be very focused. Chun Mingming suddenly asked, the question, is it really that simple to solve the case? Luoqiu said, what do you think? Chun Mingming shook his head, looked at the glass in front of him, sighed, and stood up. I'm not drinking. Thank you for your hospitality. You're welcome. Chun Mingming turned and left, frowning at the same time. Is there a guest? Miss Maid's voice came from the stairs. Chun Mingming, you've been busy. Luoqiu waved his hand. Miss Maid took a step forward and appeared in front of the bar counter. It seems that he encountered something he was puzzled about. Luoqiu didn't hide it, smiled and said, he asked me what was the meaning behind the test questions. Miss Maid also smiled. How did Master answer him? Luoqiu shook his head. I suddenly had a bad taste, so I didn't say anything. Yi said, solving a case is to find the truth, and finding the truth means that it will affect a person's fate and life. It's equivalent to controlling someone's life, whether it's good or bad. It all depends on one's own will. Controlling Life is a compulsory course for Black Soul Envoys. Chapter 12:18. Time Rain. Monday morning, the sky was gloomy. Although it was already spring, the cold in the south was equivalent to a tribute damage. Even if one wore thick socks, they could still feel the coldness and discomfort from the soles of their feet. Although the administration's rising sun and Yongang combination didn't need to sleep in the open, they had a surveillance mission, so naturally, they couldn't be too far away from the target. On the rooftop of the building opposite Zhao Lijia's house, Bu Bugao was curled up next to Wang Hu. After a night of guarding, he was already exhausted. He wrapped his clothes tightly and leaned against Wang Hu's back. After touching this silly big guy's body, he could feel a warm current. He really couldn't take it anymore. Wang Hu, I'm going to take a nap. Wake me up if anything happens. Okay. After Wang Hu responded simply, he raised his head and looked at the gloomy sky. He reached out his hand, and tiny raindrops fell on his palm. The raindrops faintly carried a sense of joy, and there seemed to be a slight tremor in the air. Wang Hu frowned and stood up in the next second. His cloudy eyes suddenly became bright. Bu Bugao, who had just closed his eyes, suddenly lost his back. He subconsciously opened his eyes and saw Wang Hu slightly bend his knees at this time, then jumped and rushed to the sky. Wang Hu, where are you going? Bu Bugao suddenly woke up completely, but he saw Wang Hu's figure gradually becoming smaller in the air. Whoosh! The pet hospital was only 3 stories high and could be said to be the shortest building around. A figure slowly fell at this time and landed on the roof of the pet hospital. After Long Shuo landed, she stretched out her hand to cover her mouth and yawned. She wandered around Kelowna in a very short time and set up a seal to seal the spiritual energy. It could be said that she was quite tired. Of course, the tiredness here was mental tiredness. In theory, Kelowna Shinryu had infinite physical strength. Let's take a shower first and then sleep. Long Shuo covered her shoulder. After rotating her arms a few times, she whispered in a low voice. The light rainwater had long soaked her hair. It was wet, and she seemed to be a little uncomfortable. But as soon as Long Shuo took a step forward, she seemed to feel something and looked up in confusion. She saw a figure in the sky was diving toward the rooftop of the pet hospital. Long Shuo frowned. At the same time, the figure was already standing on the rooftop. The moment he landed on the ground, he held back his strength so as not to cause the building to tremble slightly. The newcomer's control of strength could be said to be well practiced. Long Shuo saw the newcomer's face clearly, and her small mouth could not help but open slightly. Even though a stroke had been cut off, the burly figure and the aura of one of the 4 heavenly spirit clans were very obvious. Huang Bai Talisman? Kelowna Shinryu was stunned for a moment, then remembered the information about this guy. It was said that in the middle of the Mount Tai incident, Huang Baifu, Baijie, and the others were lost in the Penglai treasure vault. Later, everyone escaped, but Huang Baifu was still missing. Until the Mount Tai incident temporarily came to an end, Huang Baifu still did not return to the White Tiger clan. Now, the White Tiger clan seemed to be in chaos. In the beginning, Huang Baifu was not the designated successor of the White Tiger clan. He was only a half-demon born of the previous White Tiger and a human woman. Of course, not many people knew about this. Even in the administration, only a limited number of high-ranking people knew about this secret. When Huang Baifu was young, he was not liked. The previous White Tiger seemed to be too lazy to even take care of him. He only saw Huang Baifu as a byproduct of his own selfish desires. Huang Baifu's mother was a human. After giving birth to Huang Baifu, she could not accept the humiliation and directly committed suicide by hanging herself. Since then, Huang Baifu disappeared from the White Tiger clan's secret territory. Dozens of years ago, Huang Baifu suddenly appeared from the forest and consecutively challenged a few young talents of the White Tiger clan. In the end, on the day of the clan's big day, he directly killed the previous White Tiger. Now, the previous White Tiger's corpse was still hanging on a mountain peak in the White Tiger's secret territory, and this mountain peak was the burial place of Huang Baifu's birth mother. Since then, Huang Baifu used absolute violence to suppress the entire White Tiger clan. Not only that, but he even used a very short period of time to sweep through the other 4 heavenly spirit clans. For a time, he was known as the strongest White Tiger in history. Although Huang Baifu's reputation was not very good, his martial prowess made the 4 heavenly spirit clans say that he was a mutant that could rival Kelowna Shinryu. Of course, this was just a method of flattery. Back then, Huang Baifu was not so arrogant as to think that he could defeat Kelowna Shinryu and excitedly run over to challenge him. Long Shuo was naturally not interested in purposely running over to fight Huang Baifu in order to prove himself. Kelowna Shinryu and Huang Baifu's meeting was very limited. They had only greeted each other during the past few Penglai conferences. That was it. After the Mount Tai incident, Huang Baifu had yet to appear. The White Tiger clan was without a leader. The previous White Tiger's direct descendant, Huang Baifu's half-brother, had now stood up in the name of the orthodox White Tiger. Currently, he was doing his best to gather Huang Baifu's forces. Huang Baifu's matters flashed through Long Shuo's mind. She tilted her head and looked at Huang Baifu in front of her, looking at his broken arm. This wound had clearly healed and was not a new injury. When they were in the Penglai treasury, Long Shuo and Huang Baifu were actually very close to each other. Unfortunately, until she left, they had never really met. Could this arm have been broken in the Ponlai treasury? However, when she thought of the terrifying mass-produced Gaia in the Ponlai treasury, Long Shua's scalp tingled a little. Although she could only use Chi-Chi Kamaya's God Pearl to activate part of Kelowna Shinryu's power, at the same time, she did not receive endless power support from the Earth. However, no matter what, Long Shua also held half of the Xianyuan killing sword at that time. However, she could not gain the upper hand in the hands of Gaia, who claimed to be the treasury manager. She even fell into a desperate situation. Later, if it were not for when she thought of what happened later, Long Shua felt a burst of irritation. How could she think of everything? Damn it, when did you come out? Long Shua looked at Huang Baifu and took 2 steps forward. Why didn't you go back to your nest? Why did you come to me? I heard that your brother is now expanding. Listening to Long Shua's puzzled words, Huang Baifu, Wang whose eyes flashed with a trace of confusion. Long Shua frowned. She felt that the current Huang Baifu was different from her impression of him. It seemed that he had become a retard. You know me? Wang, who was silent for a moment before he slowly said a sentence. Long Shua blinked. There were not many people in this world who could lie in front of Kelowna Shinryu. In an instant, Long Shua thought of a possibility and then said in disbelief, "You didn't lose your memory, did you?" "I did forget the past." Wang, who did not hide it. With his current personality, he basically said what he wanted to say. Long Shua was stunned and then said, "Then why did you want to come to me?" Since he was sick, he naturally had to be treated. It was normal for the demon race of the demon realm to come to her for treatment. However, Huang Baifu had lost his memory. Why did he want to come to her? Wang Hu said slowly, "I felt a very strong qi. Then my body moved and came all the way here. You are very strong. My intuition told me that I might not be able to win against you. However, I still want to try." Even if he had lost his memory, his instinct to fight still affected his actions. Long Shua shook her head and waved her hand. "Forget about fighting. I am not in the mood recently. Besides, I am afraid that you will be traumatized. Come with me. I will show you how you lost your memory." Wang Hu moved. Without any warning, he flew over and kicked. Long Shua was furious. She stretched out her hand and grabbed. "Damn it, what are you doing here? Do you want to destroy my hospital?" This kick did not land. Wang Hu's body was directly pinched in midair by an invisible thug. Wang Hu struggled a few times but could not break free. At this time, his forehead was full of green veins. There seemed to be an even more scorching power in his body that woke up from a deep sleep. It actually slightly pushed away this invisible big hand. Long Shua frowned and snorted. "If you transform into a white tiger here, I will dare to pull out your tiger penis and soak it in wine." Seal. The immense power of the true dragon gathered from all directions at this moment. In an instant, the blazing power in Wang Hu's body was directly defeated. This power instantly cooled down and once again fell into a deep slumber in Wang Hu's body. Long Shua snorted and released her palm. Wang Hu, who was in the air, fell to the ground with a pale face. "I really can't beat you." Wang Hu stood up slowly, then turned and left. The true dragon of the divine land was dumbfounded. So this guy came all the way here just for a fight? No, this guy has lost his memory now. Wait, Long Shua shouted directly. Long Shua sighed and said, "I'm a little worried about you now. Let me see if you can." Before she finished speaking, she saw a figure quickly flip over the wall of the pet hospital's rooftop and rush up. "Wang Hu, why are you running? I'm so tired." Bu Bu Gao was panting heavily at this time and ran to Wang Hu's side in a few steps. He was still holding a stick in his hand. This stick was connected to a thin steel cable. At the end of the steel cable was a steel claw. The steel claw was still hanging on the fence. Wang Hu. Long Shua couldn't help but frown again. Bu Bu Gao then noticed that there was another beautiful woman here. He subconsciously asked, "You are?" I'm very sorry. I am very sorry." In Long Shua's office, Bu Bu Gao was sweating profusely. If it wasn't because he didn't want to be too rude, he even had the intention to kneel on the ground and cry. He knew that Wang Hu liked to find monsters with some strength to spar with. But he didn't expect this big fool to find Kelowna Shinryu's house. She was one of the top advisors of the agency. Although she didn't care about anything, if she didn't like someone, she could just say something and that person would have no future in the agency. You said that he is called Wang Hu, a Huanin tiger demon. He is your support logistics partner? Yes, Lord Long. This is Wang Hu's ID. Looking at the ID that Bu Gao handed over with both hands, Long Shua couldn't help but feel a little strange. This ID was real, not fake. Then there was the problem. Although Huang Baifu didn't have much activity in human society, he was dangerous. It would be strange if the agency didn't have a file on Huang Baifu. How did this guy pass the inspection? Were the personnel who checked the ID all idiots? No, the HR department. Long Shua began to rummage through her drawer in the next second. Finally, she found a thick stack of documents at the bottom of the drawer. Flipping open the documents, Long Shua suddenly narrowed her eyes. She saw the name written on the documents, Deputy Director of the HR Department, Huang Mutian. And this Huang Mutian, others might not know, but Long Shua was very clear about his identity. Huang Mutian was the uncle of Huang Baifu's half-brother. As expected, Long Shua suddenly sneered. Did they want to cover up Huang Baifu's memory loss so that Huang Baifu's brother could seize power? This was really bad. The monster race had learned how to fight for power and profit like humans. But did the strongest white tiger become a member of the agency? Was it heaven's will, or was it unintentional? Looking at the Wang Hu, who was standing beside Bu Gao like a piece of wood, Long Shua narrowed her eyes. This matter, I'll treat it as if it never happened. Long Shua put down the documents at this time and said indifferently, since this support of yours is new and doesn't know anything, I can't hold on to it. Lord Long, please forgive me. Bu Gao was suddenly overjoyed. Seeing that this guy seemed to have a lot of flattery to say, Long Shua waved her hand in time. Okay, if there's nothing else, you can leave. I don't like to be disturbed. Bu Gao said, understood. But, Lord Long, I have one more thing to ask. What is it? Bu Gao glanced at Wang Hu, then scratched his head and said, my brother seems to have lost his memory. Lord Long, can you see if you can treat him? Long Shua was stunned. She could see through people's hearts. From Bu Gao's appearance to him talking about his encounter with Wang Hu, she could roughly guess Bu Gao's thoughts at that time. Long Shua pondered and said, since Wang Hu has lost his memory, his character is like a blank piece of paper. You can also monitor him. Once he recovers his memory, maybe he will leave you. Don't you care? This, Bu Gao hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. It's a pity, but how do I put it? Let's put it this way. I also have a mother and a father. If I forget my parents one day, that's too pitiful. Similarly, if Wang Hu forgets these, isn't it also very pitiful? Whether he's a demon or not, these memories, he has the right to have them, right? Listening to Bu Gao's words, Long Shua couldn't help but look at Bu Gao again. Would he sympathize with a demon agent from the agency? At the same time, Wang Hu also subconsciously looked at Bu Gao. Bu, it's okay. Bu Gao was rather cheerful. He smiled and said, if you can recover your memory, I believe you won't forget me. By then, you won't be so stupid, then it'll be much more convenient for us to go on missions. We're a team. I won't forget you. Wang Hu nodded, still in that short and concise style. Definitely. Long Shua looked and looked, then the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Chapter 12:19. In a human realm, amnesia is a very troublesome disease, and there is no way to cure it, let alone the demon race who has a completely different life structure. If he was seriously injured and dying, I might be able to save him, but I can't do anything about amnesia. So it's like that. Bu Gao couldn't help but feel disappointed. Wang Hu, on the other hand, seemed to be indifferent and didn't care at all. Long Shua said indifferently, but this kind of disease is actually not much different from humans. It's nothing more than hiding in a place that can evoke his memories and talking about the past. Maybe he just needs an opportunity to remember everything. Since even Kelowna Shinryu said that she couldn't do anything, what else could Bu Gao say? But if he told Wang who to talk about the past and go to a place that could evoke his memories, who knew where to go? All right, keep him in check, Long Shuo said again. After all, there's a difference between humans and demons, and the agency has to deal with these relationships well. After all, as one of the top advisors, well, in front of newbies, Kelowna Shinryu didn't hesitate to show her glorious side in front of them. Bu Bugao has learned. TSK, the strongest white tiger, has become the agency's lowest-level support staff. Looking at the two figures outside the window, Long Shuo suddenly had a mischievous smile on her face. Bu Bugao and Huang Baifu. Wang, whose combination was probably something that the entire Kelowna Transcendent Dao and Demon Realm couldn't think of. What kind of chemical reaction would such a combination lead to in the end? Long Shuo secretly thought about some things. After unexpectedly meeting Huang Baifu, who had amnesia, she suddenly felt that the gloominess was swept away and the mental fatigue of the past few days seemed to be relieved a lot. I wonder what Pianxian is doing. Long Shuo subconsciously thought that it had been almost an hour since she came back, and this was the first time that this little guy didn't react at all. But she could feel that this little butterfly demon was clearly in her room. Pianxian, I'm back. What are you doing in the room? As usual, Long Shuo directly pushed open the door and entered. The Long Shuo didn't know how many times she had scolded the little butterfly for not locking the door. The moment she opened the door, Long Shuo saw a pile of books on the table. She couldn't help but have a headache. It seemed that this butterfly had the heart of a top student. Agile, glancing over the desk, Long Shuo finally found Luo Dance curled up in the corner between the desk and the bed. She had a bad feeling. What happened? Long Shuo walked quickly to Luo Dance's side and squatted down to check. At this time, the little butterfly demon's face was slightly red, and her body temperature was higher than usual. The colorful wings behind her back were completely exposed, but they were folded and slightly trembling. The little butterfly demon's eyes were sometimes confused and sometimes high, and two curled antennae appeared on her forehead. She seemed to be unable to maintain her human shape. What the hell happened? Sister Long, is that you? Luo Dance raised her head. Her watery eyes were still misty and hazy. I don't know. I just feel that my body is so strange, so hot, like holding something. Am I sick? Long Shuo gave a start and couldn't help thinking of a possibility. She immediately stretched out her hand and pressed the little butterfly's forehead, asking, "Do you feel that your heart is beating faster and your body is becoming more sensitive? You feel weak with a light touch, right?" Sister Long, how do you know? Of course I know, Long Shuo said angrily. It's obviously mating season. Don't worry, you're not sick, just an estrus. In an estrus? The ruddy face of the little butterfly demon seemed to become redder. Obviously, even if one understood it literally, they could understand the meaning of estrus. The little butterfly demon became anxious. Her mother died in the hands of a praying mantis monster when she was a child. She was raised by a grandpa tree monster. Of course, Grandpa Tree Monster couldn't bring himself to discuss this with Luo Dance. She really didn't know what to do now. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. Long Shuo waved her hand. Drink more cold things. When you feel that your imagination will run wild, go to cold water. If the effect is not good enough, go to the basement and get some dry ice. Don't go out unless necessary. Especially don't meet any male creatures. You'll be fine in a few days. Luo Dance was obviously very obedient to Kelowna Shinryu's words. Sister Long, you're so good. You even know this. Yes, after all, Ahem. Well, I'll get some dry ice for you. Long Shuo cleared her throat and went out with a calm face. That was close. She almost spilled the beans. The murderer is suspected to be a person with abnormal mysophobia. Why did he kill? At the elevator on the first floor of the building, Ren Xiling, who was waiting for the elevator, began to think crazily while reading the information she got from Nan Xiaonan. Although she had promised Luochio that she wouldn't rush into the murder scene, she couldn't restrain her instinct when facing such a big case. While thinking, Ren Xiling lowered her head and walked into the elevator. After pressing the button for the floor where the magazine office was located, she began to bite her ballpoint pen and entered the reasoning state again. But her reasoning ability had always been terrible. Ding! When the elevator door opened, Run Xiling still looked down at the notebook and walked into the office of the magazine. Unexpectedly, the moment she pushed the door open, she suddenly heard a crackling sound. "Congratulations, Sister Run," everyone said in unison. Aldrin was really shocked at this moment. She saw ribbons flying in front of her, and colorful shredded paper and gold powder were gushing out. The whole magazine stood in front of her at the same time, holding congratulatory props in their hands. What happened? At this time, Lizzie walked to Run Xiling with a smile, holding her hand and saying, "Sister Rin, congratulations on being the chief editor." Run Xiling rolled her eyes. "Do you have nothing better to do? Do you have nothing to do but to make fun of me?" Chief editor. She had always been the deputy chief editor. No. Lizzie shook her head and said, "This chief editor is the real chief editor, not your deputy chief editor." What? Run Xiling was stunned. Another male colleague laughed at this time. "It's true. The big boss called today. From today on, you are the chief editor, and the former chief editor will be demoted to the deputy chief editor." Run Xiling blinked and subconsciously looked at the chief editor's office. She saw a thin, middle-aged man with glasses holding a paper suitcase, walking to the deputy chief editor's office with a gloomy face. "What's the situation? This is the big boss's idea." Lizzie shrugged. "Here, this is your promotion document." Run Xiling looked at it, and suddenly her face became strange. It's really Nanny Run, who was in a daze, came to the chief editor's office in a daze under the crowd celebration. Needless to say, someone had already moved the things in her office over. Looking at the high imitation world-famous painting that her son sent back from abroad hanging on the wall, Nanny Run rubbed her chin, then picked up the phone and called the big boss of the magazine. The big boss was also a wonderful person. When he founded the magazine, he didn't make much money. Then he began to invest in the stock market under the instigation of his friends. He might have been a leak, but he didn't expect to grow into a leak. After several financial crises, he foolishly became an airdrop. From then on, he went out of control and went to the peak of life. This big boss, who didn't even know how much wealth he had, simply became a hands-off shopkeeper and took his sister to travel around the world. Nanny Run had been working for so long, but she had only seen this loyal Victory Group player once at the company's annual meeting. "You are? Big boss. I'm Run Xiling." "Run Xiling? Oh, Run Xiling. How is it? Have you received the promotion document?" "I have received it, but why is it so sudden?" Nanny Run listened to the big boss's tone and felt something was wrong. It seemed that he didn't have much impression of her. Then why was she promoted? "Oh, it's like this. The previous editor-in-chief was too conservative. I feel that it is not suitable for the style of our magazine." The big boss said this time, "As for you, I have read a few of your articles and they are to my liking. I want to make the style of our magazine more youthful, so I think you should be able to do it. How about it? Don't you accept it?" This is not. Run Xiling's eyes were a little fluttering. She probably didn't expect that such a good thing would actually fall on her head. "Oh, in terms of salary, according to the previous editor-in-chief's level, it will be increased by 50%. The big boss said with a smile at this time, "I will give you 1 month of paid annual leave every year. In addition, I will give you the right to use external funds. You could decide on the funds within 100,000 yuan. You don't have to go through me." Listening to this big boss talking about the benefits he gave her, Nanny Run suddenly had a strange feeling. She even had a feeling that this big boss had taken a fancy to her and was planning to sleep with her. "Until, do your work well. Don't call me if you have nothing to do. I'm still in the Aegean Sea. I'm going to Spain next. I don't plan to come back this year. The company will be handed over to you." "Ha ha, beat. I'm not dreaming, am I?" On a private yacht in the Aegean Sea, a man in his 30s was holding a phone. He was wearing a checkered short-sleeved shirt and a pair of sunglasses. And his teeth seemed to glow when he smiled. "Hello, Miss Song, I have done as you said." "Yes, I understand. After all, you paid such a high price to buy my magazine. but I don't understand why Miss Song is still willing to let me be the big boss. The company is already yours. Well, after all, the price is here. Of course, I don't care. Don't worry, I won't reveal your identity. It is written in the contract, Zhang family's mansion. I didn't disturb her life, did I? Song Ying put down the phone casually. She made such an arrangement not only because of Luo Chio's request, but also because of the Song family. What a joke. She was the wife of the Song family's direct descendant. Even if she got married, how could she be bullied at work outside? Also, it was a small compensation. After all, Song Ying once deceived Luo and went to his home. Recalling that Rin Xiling's first reaction when she found out that she had lied to her was not anger, but the way she pounded her chest on the sofa, as if she had suffered a heavy blow, Song Ying subconsciously smiled, thinking that this aunt was really a wonderful person. The relationship between the two is really good, Song Ying murmured. After recalling Luochio's horrible eyes that night, she didn't know why she felt irritated. She held her chin and looked at the wall clock, gradually becoming absent-minded. At this time, the door was knocked. Zhang Qingrui came in with a smile. "Did I disturb you?" "Yes, I did," Song Ying said casually. Song Ying said casually, "It's fine if I'm borrowing your place, but I'm also borrowing your place to work. But don't worry, I found a new office. It's ready-made and can be used without much renovation. Once I'm done with the preparations, I'll move out. Actually, it's not a problem to live here." Zhang Qingrui smiled. "It's just me and Grandma home, so it's usually quiet. It'll be livelier with more people. Don't worry, I'll come here often to eat." Song Ying smiled. "After all, it's a formal cooperation between our families. I'm going to show off my skills here." Zhang Qingrui walked to the table and sat down, saying casually, "I heard from Grandma that old Master Song's investment this time is to let your Song family's girl practice." "My Song family's girl?" "Luochio can just say it." Song Ying said grumpily, "Grandpa does have such a plan, but it depends on the person. If she's really not suitable, he won't force her to stay." Zhang Chui said enviously, "Your Song family's education method is really special." "Your family's is special." Song Ying sighed. "Even my grandpa said you're a rare classic beauty. He seldom praises others." Zhang Qingrui covered her smile. "Well, let's stop flattering each other. Next, please take care of the cooperation." She reached out her hand. Song Ying understood and reached out to shake her hand gently. Chapter 12:20. There was a class on Monday morning, and it was the first class. Because of the rain, the lights in the classroom were turned on. Although it was not as gloomy and cold as outside, the drowsy voice of the old professor made the classroom feel dull. He wondered what his sister was doing at home. Because of the rain, Zhang Xiaoqin chose to rest at home today. Continuous exercise also required rest. Only by combining work and rest could she recover better. In the classroom, Zhao Lu was thinking about his sister. He suddenly felt a limitation for humans, the problem of perspective. Being unable to know what the people he cared about were experiencing at the same time in different scenes always made people feel a little uneasy. Unfortunately, it often happened at this time. Yes, the world was turning every minute. Those who were related to him, or those who didn't want to be related to him, were all turning around. Where would their eyes land? Maybe when they were watching the same TV series. In this way, the hidden uneasiness in his heart would be reduced to the minimum, because he could see the plot, because he didn't need to be limited to the perspective of a certain character, because it was the perspective of God, and also because there wouldn't be anything that was beyond his ability. Unconsciously, Zhao Li's soul had wandered, thinking of many things that were out of the ordinary. The dreary classroom on a rainy day seemed to be the best hotbed for imagination. "You have been here before." Chun Mingming's words suddenly appeared in Zhao Li's mind, pulling his scattered thoughts back to the silent classroom in an instant. He suddenly broke out in a cold sweat. Looking around subconsciously, he didn't see Chun Mingming's figure. He wouldn't come to school again. Zhao Lu raised his textbook and looked down at his mobile phone. In the social media app, there was a special person's account saved. A blank profile picture. That person said that unless something special happened, it was best not to have more contact, let alone try to meet. If he wanted to maintain his own life, he should pretend that nothing had happened. Zhao Lu had always followed this principle. In the past few months, he didn't try to contact that person. The only time was when he inexplicably received a silver message. And that person only replied with one word: no. Zhao Lu even instinctively didn't believe the other party's answer. His life had always been extremely peaceful, living according to the rules. Only this person, at a specific time, had a specific intersection with him, because this person was the only one who knew about the other side of him. In the end, he was unable to remain calm after his conversation with Chun Mingming last night. Once again, he broke his promise with Chun Mingming. I heard that the police have found a place that sells freezers, so it's very likely that they have already gotten hold of some clues. These are the words that Zhao Lu typed out, but he did not send them out. He was silent for a moment before he quickly deleted them and typed out another line of words. In fact, Zhao Lu regretted asking about the silver pistol the last time. He didn't know if such words would leave any traces on the internet. So this time, he became even more careful. How have you been? After waiting for a while, Zhao Lu finally got a response. The response stunned Zhao Lu. Who are you? Seeing such an answer, Zhao Lu was a little surprised for a moment. But on second thought, the other party was probably more careful than him. Perhaps the other party was even being monitored? Who are you? It seemed to be just a question, but it was very likely a signal from the other party. Don't try to contact me? Zhao Lu pondered for a moment, opened the spam messages on his mobile phone, copied one of them, and sent it out. Successfully predicted Tiger on Saturday 3/3. Dilliu Kai / pick a level 10 plan plus little sister V letter. 341-32512. After waiting for a while, there was still no response from the other party. When Zhao Lu copied the same content and sent it again, it showed that the sender was received. You did not add the other party as a friend. Could it be that the other party was really in a dangerous situation? Instantly, Zhao Lu had a feeling of uneasiness. Because of his perspective, he couldn't see everyone related to him. He couldn't help but worry. You have been to the crime scene. In Zhao Li's mind, the words that Chun Mingming said while standing under the street lamp, like a ghost, rang again. Would he tell others about what happened last night? His father must be investigating this case. What should I do? Zhao Li's mind was full of all kinds of thoughts. In this cold weather, sweat faintly appeared on his forehead. The bell rang, and the lecturer and the students left one after another. But Zhao Lu still didn't notice. It wasn't until the classroom administrator came and was about to lock the door and patted Zhao Li's shoulder that he woke up from his dream, and his face was even a little pale. Student, are you okay? No, I was thinking about something. Sorry, I'm leaving. Zhao Lu hurriedly packed his things and left the classroom. Really? Do I look like I'm joking? Luochio rarely received a call from Ren Xiling in the morning. He received it this morning. He only heard Chief Editor Ren chattering on the other side of the phone. She didn't sound like a person reporting good news at all. Instead, she was shouting like a guest who participated in a prank show and was pranked. It was probably Song Ying's doing behind the scenes. Luochio thought, according to Ren Xiling's work style, it was probably a blessing from God to keep her current position, let alone be promoted. Connecting this to the fact that the Song family recently began to inject funds into the local area, Luochio easily figured out the connection between them. This kind of thing was naturally not worth buying information about. Besides, just promoting Ren Xiling so that she could do what she wanted to do to the maximum extent didn't exceed Luochio's limit. On the contrary, this not only didn't disturb her life, but also allowed her to better enjoy her own life. She really put in a lot of effort. Luochio smiled slightly. Sticking brat, are you listening to me? I said I was promoted. Congratulations. That's it? What do you want to eat tonight? Eat? What do you want to do? Of course, eat at a restaurant. Come on, call you Yi. I'll take you to eat something good tonight. So it's decided then? It was indeed decided, because the phone was hung up instantly. Luochio shook his head and put down the phone. Then, like turning off the TV, he turned off the holographic screen in front of him. The last scene was the scene in the conference room where the police officers were discussing the case. Boss Luo went up to the second floor and came to the room that served as the server room of the Master God Project. Miss Maid, who always had a habit of changing her clothes, was now wearing a gray-black suit with a white floral blouse inside. Her stockings, which were as thin as cicadas' wings, wrapped around her perfect calves, which were now placed together and slanted. Her golden hair was tied up, and the lens of the rimless glasses she wore constantly reflected the floating images on the screen, while her 10 fingers were rapidly typing on the keyboard. Just like how she often wore the white robe of a female researcher when she entered the laboratory. "How's the progress?" Luaccio came to the servant girl's side and casually sat on the edge of the table, asking with a smile. The robot beside him stood up, but the boss waved his hand and sat down again. "Still designing the map of the new world, about 1/10 done." Yi pushed the edge of the glasses. "Don't worry." Luaccio turned the screen and looked at the design on it, showing a look of admiration. This was really designing a complete world terrain, and many of them were fantasy style. The next Master God project would be a real upgrade, no longer relying on a single game, but a completely independent real world with the world fragment as the core. Everything in it would not be just a pile of data anymore. The boss suddenly had an idea, so he said, "I don't want to use the program to make these NPCs in the new game world." Yi said, "Master, do you want to let the guests be reincarnated as plot NPCs?" Boss Luo said, "No, the development of plot NPCs is very limited, and it is limited to a certain place, a certain map. I want to use fake souls." "Fake souls?" Luaccio nodded and said, "Anyway, the world fragment is a self-evolving world after intercepting a certain period of history. When I bought this world fragment, it was intercepted in the middle and late period of the 100 Years' War between England and France, and it has already brought all the characters of this era. Instead of arranging these characters into the plot, it is better to select some of them as single plot NPCs. I also want to see if these fake souls have successfully upgraded into real souls." "Well," Yi pondered for a while and came up with an idea. "It's too weird to suddenly change the main theme of the game world. Why don't we put the players who broke through the first district of the Demon King Castle and entered the second district here? The second district will change into a new plot. That is also possible." Luaccio nodded. He suddenly remembered a cartoon he watched when he was young. The main character in it was driving the dragon fighter, fighting the Tsong, Chuanja Mountain layer by layer, and each layer of the Tsong, Chuanja Mountain, was a small world that was different from the background. "Well, we can add more areas in the future." Yi then proposed a supplementary plan. In this way, whether it is Master who wants to experience a different style of world, or the game world itself, it will also increase the playability of the game world. Luaccio said softly, "You will be too tired like this." Yi said softly, "This is the most important project for Master's next harvest. Use this to calculate. Anyway, I have no use for it." Luaccio opened his palm, releasing a golden light ball. This was the Book of Araya obtained from the Ponlai treasure house. Of course, it was only a part of the complete Araya's book, but it already had the terrifying effect of directly rewriting the memory of a subworld creature, distorting history, and even had a powerful calculation ability. The 30-year reincarnation given to Momo was based on the calculation ability of the Araya's book. This part of the Araya's book was not the payment of the customer in the transaction, so Luaccio didn't have the restriction that the transaction items needed to be stored or sacrificed within 3 days, so he kept it. Now, it was just right to put it into the creation of a new world. Yi weighed this part of the Araya's book in her hand, and suddenly said, "It is better to directly use it as the core of the world, so it can play its role to the maximum, but unfortunately it is not complete. If it is complete, I am afraid it can directly create a complete subworld." After all, the world fragment given by Luaccio was only a fragment from a subworld, and it was only the background of one era in the subworld. The expansion of the space naturally had a limit, and it couldn't really evolve a space like the Earth. Just like the former world of Yenwuyua, it was only an island country as the land, surrounded by the ocean, and the ocean had an end. Although the sun rose and the moon set, in essence, it was more similar to the ancient Kelowna theory of the square sky and square Earth. The complete Araya's book had the ability to upgrade the world fragment into a complete subworld. Luocio thought through some things. Obviously, there was more than one book of the Araya's book. Every subworld should have its own book of the Araya, just like the numbered Araya. Many subworlds were the hotbeds for cultivating a perfect world. Many subworlds were probably upgraded from the original world fragment with the help of the Araya's book. Well, it seemed that he had unconsciously done something similar to the whole Araya system. Master, Miss Maid's voice interrupted Luocio's thoughts. He smiled slightly and didn't mind, but reached out to take off Miss Maid's glasses. Accompany me to dinner in the evening. It's good to strike a balance between work and rest. Is it Miss Wren's invitation? Miss Maid's eyes brightened slightly, and she whispered, Then I have to prepare well, since the unknown upgrade. The holy soul sealed in Miss Maid's body began to have a strange commotion little by little. Just do it as usual. Luocio smiled. It'll scare her if it's too strong. Yes. The servant girl nodded slightly. But when she nodded, her movement suddenly became stiff, and there was even a faint sound of gears rubbing. It seemed that it was time to oil it. Let me help you, Luocio said softly. How is it? Do you feel better? In the bathroom, white mist slowly overflowed from the bathtub and then sank. It didn't take long for it to cover the bathroom floor. In the bathtub, the little butterfly monster who took off all her clothes was sitting cross-legged according to Longshua's instructions. She began to actively cultivate her monster power. The aura began to erupt from Mount Tai. Now it filled the land of Kelowna. The concentration of aura would increase day by day, and it would eventually return to the level of Taoist monsters and supernatural beings in ancient times. Now that they had begun to cultivate demonic powers, or those of the Taoist sects who cultivated dermic powers, they could all feel the benefits. It could be said that during this time, most of the Taoists and monsters were in seclusion and enjoying the benefits of this new era wholeheartedly. It was said that the Elysium Bar, which had always been lively, had become a lot quieter recently. Even Sun Shaosheng, the wild monkey, had begun to cultivate in seclusion for the first time. He even planned to return to the place where he obtained the demon and try to break through to the Monster King realm. Of course, Longshura didn't care about these things. What she cared about was whether Luo Dance could restrain her instinctive desire to mate. No, my body is still very hot. The little butterfly monster raised her head pitifully at this time. The dry ice in the bathtub was evaporating at a very fast speed. It seemed that her body was getting hotter and hotter. Tut, I didn't expect you to have such a big desire. Are you a woman who is cold on the outside? Longshua pursed her lips and glanced at the breast of the little butterfly. She found that the two scarlet spots had swollen like two grapes, ripe and attractive. Sister Long, how can you say that to me? Luo Dance was more aggrieved. Longshua shook her head and said, Restrain yourself first. Your body has been transformed by Su Zijuan. Even I don't know how long your estrus will last. It's your first time, so it's inevitable that you don't know what to do. But don't worry, I won't let you sleep with me. Luo Dance had to nod. Longshua said, Well, I'll get some liquid nitrogen first and check the situation. If it doesn't work, I'll go to the secret area of Xianyuan Palace and get some 9 heaven Kolpon water for you. Remember to calm down and cultivate. Although it's uncomfortable to be in estrus, it's also a good thing for you if you can resist the instinct to cultivate. Your demon power will definitely improve by leaps and bounds. But she wanted to read. The adult college entrance examination was coming soon. Seeing Luo Dance's pitiful look, Longshua didn't want to stay any longer. She was afraid that she would be soft-hearted. But what if the 9 heaven cold pond water in the secret area of Xianyuan Palace couldn't resist the desire of this little butterfly? Should she knock it out and wait for the estrus period to pass? Or should he just follow nature and give this milk cow butterfly a breeding butterfly? But Luo Dance's race seemed to be going extinct. Longshua didn't know where to get another one, and it had to be a male one. But considering Luo Dance's temperament, she was afraid that such a spouse would be unwilling. Shinryu Kelowna was a little irritated at once. Fight? No problem. Just rush up and smash whoever you don't like. Play tricks? No problem. Just rush up and smash whoever you don't like. But the matter of Estrus, why do I have to care about this? It seemed that Lord True Dragon, who had finally returned from the snow-capped peak, was still very angry. Long Shruwa sighed, pulling open her collar, and started to fan herself. It was strange. As a Shinryu Kelowna, she was invincible in the world. Even if she went deep into the magma of the Earth's core, it was just like swimming. Why did she feel hot? Long Shou only felt that she began to feel a little hot, and there was a restless breath rising from her lower abdomen. What's going on? Why am I? Long Shruwa was dumbfounded. She was not like Luo Dance, who had entered the estrus period for the first time. Obviously, she knew her physical condition in an instant. Long Shruwa shuddered, suddenly noticing that there seemed to be some glittering things in the bathroom. She walked to the wall of the bathroom and touched it, only to find some glittering powder on her fingers. Looking for the source, Long Shruwa was surprised to find that the glittering powder was from the colorful wings behind Luo Dance. Luo Dance, how dare you say you're not coquettish? Chapter 12:21. In short, she had scolded Luo Dance. Looking at Luo Dance's aggrieved face, Long Shruwa, who had a sharp tongue but a soft heart, finally sighed helplessly. She waved her hand toward Luo Dance, and a gentle force wrapped around the little butterfly monster's body, preventing the strange powder from spreading again. Luo Dance's mutation was caused by Su Zijuan, but this stinky girl probably didn't expect that such a strange and dirty thing would appear. This thing was so evil that even she didn't notice it at first. However, the abnormality in her body was caused by external things and not really a fatal state. Shinryu's power circulated in her body, and Long Shruwa had already forced out all the powder that she had accidentally inhaled. After that, Long Shruwa carefully collected the scattered powder on the road. She wanted to refine it directly with fire, but she thought that it was a strange thing that could be used in the future, so she kept it. It was strange that Luo Dance's colorful wings could be opened early. Usually, she would let them out to stretch and take care of them, but she had never seen this kind of powder. Could it be that this thing was specially produced when she was an estrus? Thinking about this, although the powder in her hand had its own evil awakening, it was more precious. Because she didn't know when Luo Dance would be an estrus next time, let alone whether this thing would appear next time. I just inhaled a little bit by accident and already had a reaction. If it's a large amount, I don't know if I can bear it. Looking at the colorful ball the size of a lantern fruit, Long Shou couldn't help but fall into contemplation. Perhaps even an immortal's body couldn't bear this thing, right? Looking at the powder that kept peeling off from the colorful wings, Kelowna Shinryu suddenly narrowed her eyes. It seemed that the more excited she was, the more the powder would fall off. Dance if you really can't bear it. Just do it with your body. I'm using Shinryu's power to trap you, so there won't be any problem. You've grown up, and it's time to teach you the joy of being a female. Long Shruwa stretched out her hands, and her 10 white, jade-like fingers twisted flexibly like the tentacles of an octopus. The apartment was not big, but it was well decorated with one bedroom, one living room, and one bathroom. For a single person, it was totally a comfortable nest. Nan Xiaonan wore pajamas, curling up on the chair, holding a cup of freshly brewed oatmeal in her hand. And, at the same time, she was looking at a laptop. Once again, Nan Xiaonan sighed at the convenience of this subworld's technology and couldn't help muttering. The transfer application she wrote was not approved. The director, who ruled by inaction and was safe, rejected Nan Xiaonan's application with many reasons. If it were not for the fact that the recovery of her power was not satisfactory and that Nan Xiaonan did not dare to use her power in this dangerous subworld, this small problem would have been solved on the spot. However, she was really unwilling to continue staying in this place because in the past 2 days, she had occasionally heard from Xiao Bao that the woman who was protected by the will of the world was the one who would often run to the police station. Therefore, under Nan Xiaonan's repeated insistence and resistance, Director Liu had no choice but to give her a deadline with a bitter face. At least after this dismembered corpse case was solved, he would consider transferring her. For Nan Xiaonan at this stage, the identity of a forensic doctor was still very useful. This time, her original body explored the subworld, and only a trace of her consciousness came to this subworld. At the beginning, it was still barely enough, and she wasn't a rootless duckweed. Since this was the case, she wanted to solve this case as soon as possible, and then she could leave this dangerous place. When she woke up this morning, she clearly felt that the powerful presence that had left not long ago had returned again, including the unknown darkness, the woman protected by the will of the world, and this powerful aura. There were 3 parties in this city that made Nanshaonan feel incomparably fearful. Nanshaonan, who seemed to have fallen into the rhythm of this world's desserts, subconsciously licked her lips and planned what to do today. If she wanted to solve the case as soon as possible, simply sitting in the forensic doctor class wouldn't solve the problem, because most of the clues had been checked and there was nothing good to be found, so she planned to go to the scene of the murder herself. Now I have only recovered 12 units of strength. I hope it won't be too much. She was like a housewife without rice. Even though she had a lot of tricks up her sleeve, she suffered from the lack of units of strength. Although the concentration of elements in this world was good, and there was a trend of gradually increasing before she could analyze the rules of this world, she couldn't practice like in the original subworld. She could absorb some residual energy to replenish her units of strength, but there were only a few cases of residual energy attached to a corpse. This was the case for stowaways. Although she could barely get the right to stay, she was greatly restricted in all aspects. Unless she could truly be fully recognized by the will of this subworld, then there was no need for her to analyze the rules of this world. For example, she was like an unregistered resident without a green card, without an identity card. Even if she could stay, the work she could do was extremely limited, and there was no social security at all. Wasting time was equivalent to wasting life. Nanshaonan suddenly stood up, grabbed the bottom of her pajamas with both hands, lifted it up, and began to change out of her clothes. Just as she was biting her socks and preparing to pull up her pants, the kettle on the gas stove suddenly began to emit steam. Frightened, Nanshaonan hurriedly wanted to rush over, but in the end, she staggered and fell to the ground. She knocked her forehead, and a neither small nor large bruise appeared on her forehead. Why am I so unlucky? There were a lot fewer people in the case team today, because some of them had gone to City X with Mahoud. However, fewer people didn't mean that the work was difficult. On the contrary, there was a faint hope of a breakthrough. Early in the morning, Captain Zhou Yuxing was in high spirits, carefully studying the newly obtained information. His female colleague was speaking in a clear voice. According to Captain Zhou's request, we obtained all the records of Wang Liang and Wu Rong, mainly focusing on the month before and after their deaths. The information had been copied, and Chun Mingming was looking at the copy in his hand, listening attentively. However, at this moment, his phone rang, breaking the silence. It was like a student's phone ringing during class, attracting a lot of attention. Chun Mingming showed an apologetic look, then fiddled with the phone a few times, and then directly put it on silent mode. The female colleague continued. According to the time of death of Wu Rong and Wang Liang, we found that there were no changes in Wang Liang's account after his death. However, between the time of death of Wu Rong, which was November 22nd last year, and November 27th, there were 3 records of transfers, 56,000, 81,000, and 63,000. The account holder was Wang Liang. The female colleague's report wasn't finished yet. The total amount was 200,000. According to Brother Long's testimony, we found several other creditors that didn't include Wang Liang. After verification, between November 22nd and November 28th last year, Wang Liang repaid 3 debts, 50,000, 70,000, and 50,000 respectively. The 3 times of repayment were after the day of the 3 transfers, no more than 6 hours. After the female colleague finished her report, she sat down. Zhou Yuxing looked around at everyone and said seriously, Wu Rong died before her account was transferred, and the beneficiary was Wang Liang. What do you think? These are all records of the phone transfers, but Wu Rong was already dead before this. This means that someone, or Wang Liang's idiot, used Wu Rong's phone to transfer money to Wang Liang after Wu Rong died, one of the colleagues said. Actually, it's very obvious. Wang Liang might have rebelled after seeing the money. Everyone knows that Wang Liang usually flirted with different women because he was greedy for money. In fact, according to the investigation, the women who were related to Wang Liang all gave him money, and this money was used to repay Wang Liang's gambling debts. This Wu Rong even lent money to Wang Liang more than once. Before Wu Rong left, she even made a scene at the bar where Wang Liang worked. Assuming that Wang Liang used all kinds of methods to coax Wu Rong to leave with him to go to X City, then waited for things to calm down before borrowing money from Wu Rong. If Wu Rong refused, would Wang Liang suddenly attack her? You're saying that he killed Wu Rong, took her phone, and started a series of conspiracies to pretend that Wu Rong was still alive, then started using Wu Rong's inheritance? If that's the case, why would Wang Liang die in his own home? It can't be that he took revenge after Wu Rong died, right? And don't forget, although Wu Rong's time of death was determined to be between November 18th and 22nd, she came back through the train station on November 25th. Who is this person who came back? The case seemed to be in a contradiction again. The conference room began to quiet down. Zhou Yuxing smacked his lips, then glanced at Chun Mingming, who was deep in thought, and said casually, "Chun Mingming, what do you think?" Chun Mingming raised his head and faced everyone's gazes. He didn't feel as uneasy as he did at the beginning. After thinking for a while, he said, "Lend me your laptop for a while." He directly walked in front of the female colleague and took her place. Then, he started to fiddle with something. On the projector, everyone started to see what Chun Mingming was doing. It was a piece of Photoshop software. Chun Mingming seemed to be thinking about something. He pulled up Wang Liang's photo and started to modify it. Not long after, Wang Liang's appearance in the photo gradually changed to that of a woman. After taking a closer look, they could even see that Wang Liang's appearance after the change was 60 to 70% similar to Wu Rong's. Everyone didn't know why Chun Mingming did this, but Zhou Yuxing's heart skipped a beat, and he quickly asked, "You mean Wang Liang pretended to be Wu Rong and got on the train?" Chun Mingming nodded. The two of them came back one after the other. But according to the time, Wang Liang definitely had time to secretly return to X City after coming back. Then, he pretended to be Wu Rong and came back again. Then, he pretended to be Wu Rong and left before coming back again. Where's the evidence? Zhou Yuxing's eyes lit up, but he wasn't sure. Chun Mingming said indifferently, "It's just a conjecture. It's possible to prove this conjecture. If you don't go to X City through the normal route, you can only choose to do private car business without a license. Since Wang Liang wanted to erase the normal traces, he would only choose such an illegal car. But it's a long way from here to X City. Even if there are illegal car drivers doing this kind of business, there shouldn't be many of them. If you want to investigate, it should be easy to find them." As he said this, Chun Mingming glanced at the female colleague who gave up her seat. Then, "Can makeup be done to such an extent? I'm not very familiar with this aspect." The female colleague thought carefully and said, "According to Wang Liang and Wu Rong's figures, it's possible. An ID card can't mark a person's height, and the train station has a lot of people. The security check process only takes a moment. If you want, it's totally possible. It's really one of the top 3 sorcery in Asia." The colleague next to her sighed. Zhou Yuxing was more careful and asked directly, "Mingming, how did you think of the disguise?" Chun Mingming thought for a while and said, "I don't know. It was just a flash of inspiration. If you want to ask for evidence, I can answer you. Sometimes, what you need to solve a case is inspiration." Zhou Yuxing nodded. "This hypothesis is good. Anyway, we're now in a new puzzle. Let's not follow this train of thought. Now, send someone to find the drivers who do illegal car business in X City and this city. Ask them if Wang Liang has appeared before." "Yes." Everyone quickly left their seats to get to work. Chun Mingming sighed, closed the notebook in front of him, and rubbed his eyebrows. Zhou Yuxing walked over and asked with concern, "What's wrong?" "Nothing, just a little tired." Chun Mingming shook his head. "Tired early in the morning?" Zhou Yuxing was puzzled. "Did you not sleep well last night?" Maybe it's spring fatigue. Chun Mingming smiled. I'll also check the drivers of illegal cars. Zhou Yuxing nodded. Let's take my car. To be honest, Zhou Yuxing enjoyed the feeling of being a father and son in battle. Chun Mingming didn't resist. He smiled and nodded. Holding a black umbrella, Nan Xiaonan came to the scene of Wang Liang's murder again. She had been to this place once before, so naturally, she would be able to find her way here. It was just that last time, she was surrounded by policemen, so naturally, she wouldn't do anything out of the ordinary. Besides, at that time, she didn't intend to use her precious force to investigate this kind of murder case. But this time, in order to be transferred as soon as possible, she had to do it. But what Nan Xiaonan never expected was that she would hear a nightmarish voice at this moment. Hey, isn't this medical examiner Nan? What a coincidence. You're here too. The person who appeared in front of Nan Xiaonan was the woman who had the protection of the world's consciousness. Ren Xiling was also holding an umbrella, a cup of soy milk, and a lady's handbag on her shoulder. She was beaming with joy as she walked over quickly. Nan Xiaonan's expression changed slightly. Chapter 12:22. Why did Nanny Ren appear here? It was purely because she had nothing to do. Of course, it was a joke. Nanny Ren, who had just walked into the office in the morning, was confused by the fact that she had been promoted and was suspected to have reached the peak of her life. She felt that she needed to come out and breathe some fresh air, at least to calm down. It was definitely not to feel the pleasure of being able to sneak out of work openly under the nose of the original chief editor. It was so cool. However, it was really unexpected to meet the forensic doctor Nan Xiaonan. Originally, the police would not come to this kind of murder scene after recording, extracting evidence, and moving the body away. What a coincidence, forensic Dr. Nan. Ren Xiling greeted her cordially. Don't come over. Despite this, Nan Xiaonan still nodded calmly. But why was it like this? She had worked hard for the transfer, but she still couldn't escape? Are you also here to investigate? Ren Xiling smiled and her eyes curved into crescent moons. Why don't you take me with you? Maybe I can help. Judging from her attitude, it seemed that she was going to rely on her. Nan Xiaonan sighed in her heart. She didn't want to have too much contact with this woman, but if she refused, would it attract the attention of the world's will? She was very clear about the huge power behind this kind of child of the world, because their ideas would always be realized unintentionally. In short, it was a kind of strong luck state of God is helping me. Even if she refused at this time, under the irresistible operation of the world's will, she was afraid that she would eventually enter the scene as she wished. Nan Xiaonan quickly calculated the gains and losses in her heart. Sure enough, it's still a bit difficult. Looking at Nan Xiaonan's silent appearance, Ren Xiling couldn't help but sigh in her heart. It seems that the plan to fish in troubled waters is going to fail. Most likely, after she left last time, Xiaobao had already exposed her identity, right? Well, you follow me. Little did she know that Nan Xiaonan, who couldn't distinguish the essential difference between Ren Xiling, a woman who was protected by the world's will, and a real child of the aristocratic family, directly nodded at this time. Mammy Ren was stunned for a moment. Then, she was overjoyed and said, Dr. Nan, I will definitely thank you. You are much more reliable than old Ma. Achoo! In City X, Sir Ma, who was heading to a place where unlicensed drivers often lurked, suddenly sneezed because of the news from Zhou Yuxing. Sir Ma, have you caught a cold? Lin Feng asked casually. Officer Ma rubbed his nose and said casually, I don't think so. I just shivered suddenly. How long will it take before we arrive? About half an hour. If we can find out that Wang Liang really took an unlicensed taxi back, the case might be clearer, Lin Feng said seriously. Ma Hao nodded. He suddenly thought of looking for someone in his own city, especially an unlicensed driver in the gray area. Maybe it would be more convenient to find Ren Xiling. Do as you think. Nan Xiaonan had actually been to the murder scene, but not on the day when the body was found. She came to carefully collect the evidence at the scene. When the scene was judged to be worthless, basically no one would be sent to guard it. As for the seal, it would probably be unlocked after the case was solved. The two women with different thoughts soon came to the living room of the murder scene. Ren Xiling looked around with interest and touched, but her movements were actually very careful. She even prepared a pair of plastic gloves for herself. Nan Xiaonan looked at Ren Xiling's appearance, thinking that this woman really came prepared. It was probably not the first time that she did this kind of thing. You can't take photos. Seeing Ren Xiling take out her mobile phone, Nan Xiaonan subconsciously said, of course, this was not her own intention, but the instinct of the real Nan Xiaonan as an assimilated soul who got temporary residence. I know. Mammy Rin smiled embarrassedly. Just answer the phone. Mammy Rin pulled her to the balcony. This phone call was from Ma Haud. The reason why Mammy Rin smiled embarrassedly was that she had a guilty conscience. She didn't expect that Ma Haud would call at this time. Was it discovered? Looking for someone? The result was somewhat out of Mammy Rin's expectation. After being stunned, she quickly took out a small notebook and began to record. City X, November. Well, I know, looking for the unlicensed taxi drivers who were released these days, right? No problem, wait for my news. As usual, the informant fee is 1,500 yuan. After hanging up the phone, Ren Xiling immediately began to make another phone call. Her voice was not loud, and she deliberately lowered it. But with Nan Xiaonan's ability, it was not a problem for her to hear clearly. Hey, Mouse Chong, find me some people. Yes, last year, November. City X, 1,500 yuan. You think it's too little? Okay, then I'll find Snake Ming. I'll transfer it to you later. I tell you, this is to buy milk powder for your wife. If you dare to gamble with it, I'll kill you. Okay, I'll wait for your news. When Ren Xiling finished 2 phone calls and walked back to the living room, Nan Xiaonan pretended not to know and was squatting on the other side of the freezer. Ren Xiling walked over curiously. At this time, Nan Xiaonan stood up and blocked one side of the freezer with her body. The part that was blocked suddenly had a strange dark red symbol lit up, but in an instant, the dark red symbol seemed to have melted and directly disappeared into the freezer. Dr. Nan, didn't you sleep well last night? Why do I feel that your face is a little pale? Ren Xiling blinked. When he saw her just now, her face was still very good. It's okay, I'm a little anemic, Nan Xiaonan said indifferently. Nan Xiaonan originally did have slight anemia. Oh, come eat some of this. Ren Xiling smiled and directly took out a can of M&M's chocolate beans from her handbag. Nan Xiaonan received 10,000 points of damage from M&M's. Nan Xiaonan chose to resist. Resistance value was 0. Resistance failed. Nan Xiaonan received 10,000 points of true damage. Nan Xiaonan stretched out her hand against her will. Nan Xiaonan swallowed M&M's. Satisfaction plus 100%. Nan Xiaonan's favorability towards Ren Xiling remained unchanged. The round ended. Thank you. Nan Xiaonan glanced at the can of chocolate beans in Ren Xiling's hand and decided to remember to store some when she went back. Nanny Ren smiled and said, Actually, I don't like to eat this thing. Sometimes, when I'm doing interviews, I might meet children or people with slight anemia like you, so I use it to gain favorability. It shouldn't have expired, right? When was the last time? How many months ago? Nan Xiaonan smiled. Then her heart skipped a beat. Oh no, I almost fell into the trap of the child of the world. She was all too clear about the strong luck of the child of the world. It was as if he had the help of the gods and could easily increase the favorability of the people around him. I'm leaving, Nan Xiaonan suddenly said. Ren Xiling looked around and thought that she really didn't come when she found the body, so she couldn't see anything. She felt a little regretful, but there was nothing she could do, so she nodded and said, Are you going back to the station? I'll send you back, I just drove out. No, I'm on leave today. Nan Xiaonan refused. You're still working on leave? Ren Xiling was stunned. Dr. Nan, you're really a workaholic. Hurry up and leave. Nan Xiaonan nodded indifferently, then signaled Ren Xiling to leave. Nanny Ren had no choice but to say, You really don't need me to send you back? It's raining now, so it's not easy to walk. Hee. You're welcome. Downstairs, Nan Xiaonan saw that Ren Xiling had walked to the red car, so she subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief. Holding an umbrella, She looked up at the location of the rented house where the accident happened, thinking that if she came again at night, the tactic should be effective. Sure enough, it was because her strength was too low. If it was her original body before she came here, even if it was only 1/10 of her original strength, it would be effective instantly. Shaking her head, Nan Xiaonan was about to leave. But at this time, a takeaway truck passed by at lightning speed, and the tires splashed the dirty water from the puddles on the ground, directly drenching her body. Nan Xiaonan instantly became a drowned rat. "Dr. Nan, I'll send you back." Ren Xiling in the car in the distance rolled down the window and called out to her. Nan Xiaonan looked at her wet clothes and couldn't help but sigh. Hee hee. Sure enough, child of the world. Okay. Knowing that she probably couldn't escape, Nan Xiaonan could only sigh helplessly and then carefully get into Ren Xiling's car. "Come to my house and have a cup of hot tea." Nan Xiaonan sighed again. If possible, she was very willing to say goodbye to this woman in front of her house. But there were too many things to consider. The child of the world was a person with strong luck, and to a certain extent, she could even affect the illusory luck of the people around her. For so many years, Nan Xiaonan had seen too many unlucky people who failed to leave a good impression on the child of the world. Although this so-called good impression could be said to be metaphysics, metaphysics was the thing that should not be gambled with. In Nan Xiaonan's previous world, there was such an evil sorcerer. Because of the disgust of the child of the world, an accident happened the next day when he was practicing sorcery. A dignified 9-star sorcerer. Because of the child of the world's words, evil deeds bring about self-destruction, died tragically under a sorcery that had thousands of proficiency points. Although at this moment, if she directly went upstairs and ignored Ren Xiling, she would at most receive irrelevant comments such as rude, ungrateful, bad manners, and so on. Nan Xiaonan really didn't know whether such a small comment would bring her bad luck in the future. How can I? Ren Xiling blinked. It's not good if I disturb your family. Then why do you have such an eager reaction? Hee hee. It's okay, I live alone. Nan Xiaonan smiled. Since there was a further interaction, at least before the transfer, she would try not to leave a bad impression in front of the child of the world. The target is back. In a unit of another apartment building next to the apartment building, a foreign young man in his 30s, wearing a black jacket and holding a telescope, was holding a satellite phone and seemed to be communicating with someone. You disappoint me. How is she still alive? Don't fail this time. I know, but a strange woman came to her house. Does this strange woman know anything? I don't know. We don't have any information about this strange woman before. Be careful. Get rid of this strange woman as well. The organization's affairs are not allowed to be leaked. Okay. The foreign young man nodded. After putting away the phone, he began to open the suitcase next to him. He took out the things inside and then began to assemble them. It was a sniper rifle. He set it up at the window. Wow, you really live alone. Ren Xiling looked at Nan Xiaonan's apartment. The layout of one room, one living room, and one bathroom was really suitable for single people. She sat down casually with her beautiful eyes. When I was in college, I wanted to live in an apartment like this when I graduated and worked. Hee hee. What about now? Nan Xiaonan stood in front of the gas stove boiling water and asked casually. Now, I live with my son. Nanny Ren looked over. Don't you want to change your clothes first? Be careful not to catch a cold. Right away. Nan Xiaonan smiled slightly. Keep up the poise, keep up the poise. But live with her son? Nan Xiaonan felt a little strange. She looked at Ren Xiling's face. She didn't think she had given birth. Although she was a little confused, Nan Xiaonan didn't intend to ask further. After turning down the gas stove, she walked directly into the room. Why did this guy cover the curtains so tightly? And the curtains were black, which looked a little depressing. Ren Xiling opened the floor-to-ceiling window, breathed in the air outside, and looked out from the apartment building. At this time, Mouse Chan called and said that he had found the person. So fast. Recently I cooperated with a friend to do a private client business. Most of the places where we hide are mostly unlicensed drivers, and basically all of them are fixed people, so it's easy to find them. I'm thinking if I should reduce the benefits. Don't, my lady, my bone dragon is still waiting for milk powder at home. Forget it. Be careful of your private clients. Although it's not good, it's better than going to the mahjong house every day and stealing wires from the manhole cover. Keep an eye on it. I can't protect you if something happens. Got it. I'll send you the phone number and name. After receiving the message, Run Xiling turned around and directly sent it to Ma Houd, who was far away in X City, and didn't forget to remind him about the informant's fee. Ren Xiling began to scan the dream house that she used to live in, and a photo placed on the bookshelf next to the workbench attracted her attention. Nan Xiaonan just changed her clothes and walked out at this time, but she saw Ren Xiling holding a photo frame and staring at it. She suddenly had an ominous feeling. Wow, you and Old Qin know each other. Ren Xiling looked at Nan Xiaonan and smiled. Nan Xiaonan nodded. Could it be that this woman had really dealt with all the people in the police station? I'm kind of his junior sister, Nan Xiaonan said slowly. As Section Chief Qin's junior sister, she was also Nan Xiaonan's real identity. After all, she was originally an illegal stowaway, and when she chose to merge with Nan Xiaonan, she lost a lot of her original memories of Nan Xiaonan, so she only had a fragmentary understanding of Nan Xiaonan's past. However, Nan Xiaonan didn't lose her professional skills. She couldn't help but recall the situation when she chose Nan Xiaonan. At that time, this woman had just been in a car accident and was in a state of near death, so the merging was very smooth. She thought that the other consciousnesses trapped in this subworld were in the same situation, right? While Nan Xiaonan was immersed in her memories, Ren Xiling continued to look at the photo. In the photo, there was not only Nan Xiaonan, but also Section Chief Qin and several other guys in white robes. Two of them were white, one was black, and one of them was even an old man. It seemed that the photo was taken in the resting area of a research institute, and a gray building could be faintly seen in the background. This old man, I seem to have seen him somewhere. Ren Xiling frowned subconsciously. Nan Xiaonan had a faint impulse to drive Ren Xiling out. This was not her own wish, but from the real Nan Xiaonan. But at this moment, a strong sense of crisis hit her, and Nan Xiaonan blurted out, "Be careful." Ren Xiling was suddenly startled. Her hand slipped, and the photo frame in her hand directly fell to the ground. In a very short time, at the moment when the photo frame fell, a high-speed bullet was shot from an apartment unit dozens of meters away at the same time. Bang! The photo frame fell to the ground, and the glass mirror suddenly burst. Ren Xiling was stunned and quickly squatted down. "Ah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it." Seeing Ren Xiling began to pick up the glass fragments on the ground in a hurry, Nan Xiaonan widened her eyes, because she clearly felt the fluctuation of the world's will at this moment, and a special barrier suddenly appeared and flashed behind Ren Xiling. It seemed as if something was shooting at them, and then disappeared the moment it penetrated the barrier. Nan Xiaonan thoughtfully looked at the direction where the high-speed object appeared. It was just that the distance was too far, and there were many open or closed windows on the opposite side, so she couldn't tell for a moment. But looking at Ren Xiling, who obviously didn't know anything, Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but feel strange. This is too outrageous, isn't it? Even if she is the child of the world, even if she is very lucky, this is too outrageous. Isn't it said that the child of the world has to go through a lot of difficulties before she can cultivate? This is clearly an open protection. Okay. At the same time, outside the mysterious apartment, the young man who was close to the window suddenly frowned. The bullet had clearly been shot, but it didn't hit. It's impossible to miss. But at the moment when he was confused, the space behind him suddenly distorted, and a bullet suddenly shot out, directly entering the back of his head. Chapter 1223. Legend had it that the thoughts and actions produced by the activity of the cells in the cerebral cortex could ignore the laws of time. Of course, the so-called 10,000 years in a single glance was impossible. At the moment, Nan Xiaonan's mind was operating at full speed, madly accelerating and temporarily breaking away from the limits of physical activity. She had reached a state where only a few seconds had passed in the outside world, but her mind had already completed several minutes or even dozens of minutes of thinking. There was no doubt that Nan Xiaonan was not doing this on purpose. This danger was directed at Ren Xiling. It was very simple. If it was directed at Rin Xiling, the child of the world, and this was the training that the world was giving to the child of the world, why would the world will be so brazen and directly interfere when the person involved was unaware? Was it that free? Since it wasn't directed at Rin Xiling, there was only one possibility. This danger was directed at him. To be more precise, it was directed at the identity of Nan Xiaonan. However, because of the fusion, she did not inherit too many of Nan Xiaonan's memories, and those fragmented memory fragments could not be pieced together to form a complete and useful clue. So, who was planning to assassinate Nan Xiaonan's identity? Come to think of it, when she fused with Nan Xiaonan, the near-death state of Nan Xiaonan due to the car accident was probably not an accident, but a premeditated murder. She did not know that she just happened to be lost in this sub-world at this time, which was why after the fusion, she only thought that it was a normal car accident. She even thought that her luck was not too bad. At least she had picked up an identity that she could fuse with from the start. Now, it seemed that this was not luck, but bad luck. The identity of Nan Xiaonan she had fused with was being hunted. Who was chasing after Nan Xiaonan's identity? As for the strength of the person behind Nan Xiaonan, it was absolutely unknown to her. The assassination this time had obviously failed. Then, would there still be endless pursuits to follow? This subworld was too dangerous, and Nan Xiaonan had already sensed powerful presences that could directly blow her up. What if the person or organization chasing after Nan Xiaonan's identity also had extraordinary powers? She only had 0.003 units of power now. Today, at the scene of Wang Liang's murder, she had even used 0.008 units of power without hesitation. She was in severe regret. She had to protect herself. No matter what, she had to find a way out and return to her original body. So, she had to protect herself. Rin Xiling. Her cerebral cortex was still operating crazily, rapidly depleting the heat in her body at every moment. Rin Xiling was the child of the world, and the world's consciousness was openly protecting her. This was an unbreakable shield. In front of the subworld's will, even if she was undying, there shouldn't be any power in the subworld that could resist the will of the world. Since the will of the world was always protecting this woman, staying by her side was equivalent to being protected by the will of the world at all times. Even though this might cause her to be directly targeted by the will of the world, or perhaps it had already targeted her, Nan Xiaonan didn't feel the feeling of being spied on by the will of the world. It was very likely that it had turned a blind eye to this situation. As for why it would turn a blind eye, Nan Xiaonan didn't know. The will of the world had its own set of unique judgment standards, and even she couldn't completely understand this standard. But without a doubt, from the current situation, the will of the world didn't oppose her appearing by this woman's side. Thinking of this, Nan Xiaonan even gritted her teeth and didn't hesitate to use 0.002 units of her remaining 0.003 units of power to activate her innate soul ability, True Sight. True Sight could observe everything within a range of 50 meters. Very quickly, under the effect of True Sight, Nan Xiaonan found the source of the sudden danger. It was indeed in the building opposite her apartment. A gunman had already fallen into a pool of blood, and the back of his head had been directly blown apart. Looking at the position where the gunman was shot, and thinking of the bullet that suddenly disappeared, Nan Xiaonan already understood some things. But after understanding it, she was even more terrified. Not only did it remove this woman's danger, it even directly erased the source of the danger. Was it so unreasonable? Rin Xiling. This was the F*king leg of a golden elephant. No, the will of the world only erased the gunman, but it didn't mean that the person or organization behind the gunman would also be erased, because the other party's target was Nan Xiaonan's identity. So, it was very likely that after Rin Xiling left her side, danger would once again befall her, and the will of the world obviously wouldn't care. Are you okay? The crazy movement of the cerebral cortex suddenly stopped at this time. Nan Xiaonan subconsciously looked at Rin Xiling and saw that she was looking at her worriedly. Why is your face so pale and you're sweating cold sweat? Don't tell me you're anemic again? Rin Xiling hurriedly found her chocolate beans that she didn't know had expired. Eat some? The crazy consumption of physical strength and the use of units of power made Nan Xiaonan quite weak at this time. But when she thought of the danger she would encounter next, she had to endure it. Then, her heart moved, and she thought of a way to save herself. Sister Rin, can I ask you for a favor? Nan Xiaonan showed a rather forced smile. Rin Xiling was stunned and suddenly shivered. It wasn't because she felt any danger, but because she felt that the word sister gave her goosebumps. What's the matter? Nan Xiaonan quickly walked to the floor-to-ceiling window and drew the curtains. She glanced at the originally pitch-black curtains. Suddenly, an idea popped up in her mind, and her mind was suddenly filled with ideas. Sister Rin, do you deserve me to use this kind of black curtains at home and cover it so tightly? Nan Xiaonan sighed and said faintly. Rin Xiling thought for a while and said, well, it's nothing to have some weird hobbies as a forensic doctor. I used to know a forensic doctor who liked to lie on the operating table when he had nothing to do. He said that it was easier to get close to the dead. Nan Xiaonan could only sigh again and sit down. She lowered her head and said helplessly, no, it's actually because I've been followed recently. Stalk? Rin Xiling blinked her eyes, but her interest was piqued. How? Nan Xiaonan showed a frightened look and grabbed the corner of her clothes. I don't know, I just feel like I'm being watched all day long, and I've received flowers in front of my house for no reason. It's nothing, maybe someone has a crush on you, it's a good thing. Nan Xiaonan shook her head and said, if it's like what you said, it's fine, but they also send some strange things. Even underwear used by men. You know that I'm a forensic doctor. I can tell what's stuck on it at first glance. So perverted. Rin Xiling suddenly stood up. How can this be? Call the police. It's useless to call the police. Nan Xiaonan said helplessly. Rin Xiling was a person with a strong sense of justice. She suddenly slammed the table and said angrily, you're a forensic doctor, aren't you? Why don't you know how to protect yourself when you encounter this kind of thing? Nan Xiaonan continued to sigh. Do you know why I was transferred here? It's because I can't get rid of the person behind this. In fact, before I came here, I've been transferred several times, and I've also called the police for investigations several times, but I can't catch the person. What else can I do? I see. Rin Xiling couldn't help but frown. The police couldn't catch him several times, and you were forced to transfer to another place. This pervert is so professional. Well, how do you want me to help you? Nan Xiaonan said, actually, I don't want to transfer. It's not a solution to keep avoiding it. Besides, I like the current working environment, and I don't want to leave so soon. So, Sister Rin, can I stay at your house for a few days? These 2 days, I've been scared to death at night, and I can't sleep well. My spirit is too low, otherwise I wouldn't have taken a break today. Hey, but didn't you just go to the murder scene? Rin Xiling asked curiously. Nan Xiaonan said, I just came here and took over this tricky case, so I want to show off. And that person won't dare to act recklessly in broad daylight. Besides, that guy always shows up. So, Rin Xiling muttered, come to my house? But is this useful? Oh, I'm not afraid of anything. If this pervert dares to come to my house, I'll make him kneel down and beg for mercy. But according to what you said, this pervert only hides behind the scenes to do some dirty things and never shows up. So, even if you come to my house, it doesn't seem to improve much, right? Well, you'd better report the case. As for me, I still have some connections, and I'll help you find the pervert behind this. Don't worry, as long as it's in this city, there's no one I can't find. Thank you, Sister Rin Xiling. Nan Xiaonan grabbed Rin Xiling's hand. Rin Xiling muttered, but it's really dangerous for you to live alone. How about this? You stay at my house for 2 nights. I want to see how crazy this pervert is. Sister Rin, thank you, Nan Xiaonan said happily. You're the first friend I made when I came here. Women help each other. Rin Xiling patted Nan Xiaonan's shoulder. You're a girl, and it's really not easy for you to come here to work alone. The people in that bureau are a group of uncouth men, so naturally, they don't know how to take care of girls. Don't worry, you just stay here and work as usual. If anyone dares to bully you, just tell me. Sister Rin, you're so nice. Nan Xiaonan smiled sweetly. Rin Xiling said, but we still have to call the police. We can't let that pervert continue to be rampant just because we haven't caught him yet. And I'll listen to you. Nan Xiaonan nodded obediently. After another round of comforting, Rin Xiling looked at the time. It was almost lunchtime, so she simply said, "How about this? You pack some clothes now, and I'll go to eat with you later. Then you can leave your things at my house. Anyway, I'm more free now. It's okay if I don't go back to the company in the afternoon. I'll accompany you all the time. What I want is for you to accompany me all the time, at least before I figure out who is chasing after Nan Xiaonan's identity." Nan Xiaonan smiled. "By the way, Sister Run, is it inconvenient for me to go to your house?" "It's okay." Run Xiling shrugged and said, "Only my son and I live at home. My son is very obedient and can do housework. He's good-looking and scholarly. He won't mind." "That's good." Nan Xiaonan nodded. "I'm afraid your son will mind. I'm having dinner with him tonight. You should come too." Run Xiling said directly, "When you see him, you'll know that I'm right. But let me tell you, my son has a girlfriend. Don't you dare have any ideas about him." Nan Xiaonan thought to herself, "How old can your son be?" Of course, she was also curious. Rin Xiling obviously didn't have any signs of giving birth. How could she have a son? Was he adopted? She smiled and didn't say anything. She was afraid that Rin Xiling would suddenly change her mind, so she quickly walked into the bedroom and packed her luggage. In an office on the top floor of a building, a white-haired old man was sitting in a stylish office chair at this time. At this time, a young man in a suit and leather shoes walked into the office. "Boss!" The young man walked to the back of the chair and called out respectfully. After coughing twice, the old man turned the chair around and said indifferently, "How is it?" The young man said with a dignified expression, "Boss, number 7 is dead. The heartbeat sensor we implanted in his body stopped, so we sent someone to check and confirm that he was dead. He was shot in the back of the head. Number 7 was planning to kill the target at that time, but someone sneaked in and shot him from the back." "What?" The old man's eyes narrowed. "Nan Xiaonan has someone protecting her?" "I don't know yet." The young man said, "I'll send a few more people." The old man said, "Don't be impulsive. Last time, we found a USB flash drive that Qin gave to Nan Xiaonan, but we didn't expect that she could survive the car accident. And this time, number 7 also failed, so there must be someone protecting her behind the scenes. It might even be," the young man said, "You mean Qin? After all, we didn't find the body, right?" The old man snorted coldly. "You're getting more and more useless in the way you do things." "Boss, I'm sorry." The young man lowered his head. The old man waved his hand and said, "Since number 7 is dead, the person behind the scenes must have noticed us. Although we have the information on a USB flash drive, Nan Xiaonan must have seen the information. We must not let the information leak. We must get rid of her and the person behind her." "Then what should we do?" "Send someone to monitor first and see if the person behind the scenes will appear." The old man's tone was cold. "I've waited for so many years. I can't let my efforts go to waste." "I know what to do." The young man nodded. "I'll arrange it now." After the young man left, the old man slowly sighed and then began to cough crazily. He covered his mouth with a handkerchief, and when he stopped coughing, the handkerchief was already stained with blood. Chapter 1224. In the pugilistic world, the best way to gather information or find people was probably not the police, but the local tyrants. It wasn't that the police couldn't gather information, but in a very short period of time, they definitely couldn't compare to the people who made a living that day. It was just that they were in different fields. Although Zhou Yuxing was very confident in leading the team, it wasn't easy to find one or more unlicensed taxi drivers in just half a day. Moreover, it was drizzling nonstop, so the difficulty of finding people naturally increased a lot. It wasn't even convenient to eat nearby. This kind of place for private customers was naturally different from the environment outside the major bus stations. There were only a few shacks nearby, and some peddlers pushing tricycles to do business. There weren't many places to hide from the rain. Zhou Yuxing ran back to his car in a sorry state. The rain started to get heavier, and the drivers had already hidden themselves. Chun Mingming followed and sat in the passenger seat from the other side of the car. Zhou Yuxing took a few pieces of tissue and gave them to Chun Mingming. Check and wipe. Chun Mingming took the tissue, feeling a little touched. His parents might not have cared much about it in the past. Zhou Yuxing might have just done it subconsciously. It was a natural action, and Chun Mingming just instinctively took it. It was a logical action, a very simple scene. But why didn't he notice the camaraderie involved in this gesture in the past? What are you doing? Chun Mingming composed himself and saw Zhou Yuxing fiddling with a meat bun in a paper bag. This bun was bought from a tricycle stall nearby, so it was still steaming. At this moment, Zhou Yuxing tore the edges of the bun bit by bit, but he didn't eat it. Instead, he threw it back into the paper bag. Zhou Yuxing smiled. His face was full of stubble, and when he smiled, he looked like the skin of a hedgehog. He handed the torn bun over. It doesn't taste good when it's wet. Eat it while it's hot. The range shouldn't be long. You don't look good in the morning. Take a nap after eating. You still have work in the afternoon. Who would take care of you so carefully? Who would care if a simple bun tasted good or bad when given to you? Who would care if you slept well at night or if you were energetic in the afternoon? It was quiet inside the car. The rain fell in the car. The air conditioner was on and the radio was on. The nostalgic song Stories of a Small Town was playing. This was the sentiment of people from Zhou Yuxing's era. Chun Mingming closed his eyes and listened carefully to the singing and the sound of the rain. In this sealed and quiet environment, there was a strange sense of security. All of a sudden, he only wanted to continue like this. How great would it be if this test was indefinite? He didn't feel like he'd slept for too long. Perhaps it was only about 10 minutes. But he was clearly in better spirits. Chun Mingming felt a little sluggish. The rain outside hadn't stopped, and the rain hadn't lightened up. He curled up in the front passenger seat and didn't want to move. Zhou Yuxing's jacket covered him. It was very warm. Chun Mingming was a person with good self-control. He took a deep breath and sat up straight. Zhou Yuxing lowered his head and looked at his phone. When he heard the commotion, he casually said, "Wake up. Olmot gave me some information. Let's find these people in the afternoon." "Officer Ma?" Chun Mingming was startled. Zhou Yuxing sighed. "Don't think that Officer Ma only knows how to play minesweeper in the office. I really can't compare with him in terms of finding people. He has a lot of spies. If you have the chance, you should learn from him." Chun Mingming nodded noncommittally. He took the phone and looked at it. He had the name and contact information. With the information provided by Ma Howd, it was much easier to find people in the afternoon. In less than an hour, the extremely unlicensed drivers were found. There were a total of 3 people. All 3 of them had the experience of driving from late November to December 1st last year. Take a look and see if you pulled this man over during this period. I just want to inquire about this man, not to catch you pulling private customers. We don't care about the traffic police. Zhou Yuxing took Wang Liang's photo and put it in front of the 3 drivers. After hearing Zhou Yuxing's words, the 3 drivers, who were still a little uneasy at first, quietly breathed a sigh of relief. It was not easy to make a living. Pulling private customers was more or less risky. 2 of the drivers looked at it for a while and shook their heads, indicating that they had never seen him. However, the 3rd driver frowned. After thinking for a while, he said, "Officer, this man, I should have pulled him over before." "Are you sure?" Zhou Yuxing, Chun Mingming, and the other colleagues looked serious at this time. If he had really pulled him over before, it proved that Chun Mingming's assumption in the morning meeting was very likely correct. The driver nodded. "Yes, it's him. I remember clearly because this guy gave me cash. He was the only one in the car who gave me cash. I asked him to transfer the money to me, but he refused, so we quarreled for a while. But I can't remember the specific day, but it must have been within these few days." Zhou Yuxing nodded. "Do you have a dash cam in your car?" The driver nodded. "Yes. We'll take it back for investigation." "No problem," Zhou Yuxing said indifferently. What else could the driver say? He was already thankful that they only took away a dash cam and didn't arrest him. The progress of the investigation unexpectedly had a major breakthrough because of Chun Mingming's assumption. Everyone hurriedly returned to the station. After investigating the driver's dash cam, they found the image of Wang Liang's appearance, and the time was on November 23rd of last year, which was the night Wang Liang returned from X City. Wu Rong bought a train ticket back to City X on November 25th, In this way, it was very likely that Wang Liang had already killed Wu Rong before the 23rd, or knew that Wu Rong was dead. So he came back on the same day and then disguised himself as Wu Rong. On November 25th, he came back as Wu Rong, creating the illusion that Wu Rong was still alive after her death. Captain Zhou, I just received a call from Sirma. They also found an unlicensed driver in City X, and it has been confirmed that he pulled Wang Liang back from City X on the night of November 29th last year. A colleague said hurriedly. Sure enough, everyone was suddenly enlightened. On the morning of November 29th, Wu Rong took the train and left City X. The train arrived at City X in the evening, so Wang Liang had enough time to find an unlicensed driver and come back from City X. It's very obvious now. Wang Liang might have already killed Wu Rong, or he might have already known about Wu Rong's death and stolen her phone account. All these signs indicate that the possibility of him killing someone for money is very high. But here comes the question, who killed Wang Liang? And why did they arrange the scene to be similar to the scene of Wu Rong's death? Zhou Yuxing heaved a sigh of relief and patted the table lightly. After we're done with the case, we'll start from the very beginning. There must be something that we missed. Everyone, work harder. Let's work overtime tonight. Of course, they were already prepared to work overtime. For the criminal police, every investigation was a long and difficult battle. Zhou Yuxing then said to Chun Mingming privately, give your mother a call later and tell her not to worry. He could actually do a good job. Suddenly, Chun Mingming had an epiphany. Whether it was work or family, he could actually do a good job. Chun Mingming sighed slowly. After a while, a colleague came over and asked him what he wanted to eat. It was only the third day since Chun Mingming came to this place with the identity of a police officer. But after 3 days of working closely with everyone, he already had a familiar feeling. After smiling, Chun Mingming said that he would just order a box of green pepper shredded pork rice for him. At this time, in the meeting room, everyone was excited and ready for work at night. Chun Mingming suddenly thought of Zhao Le. He had left a message for Zhao Le, so he didn't know how Zhao Le was doing now. Chun Mingming took out his phone and wanted to find Zhao Li's account on social media. However, after searching for a while, Chun Mingming realized that he hadn't added Zhao Le as a friend. So, he hadn't added him before. In fact, the number of friends he had on social media was quite limited. Some of them had been added, but he hadn't even chatted with them. Did he really not add Zhao Le as a friend? He felt like he had forgotten something. Chun Mingming subconsciously rubbed the space between his eyebrows. There seemed to be some stabbing pain in his head. However, he received a message from Tara. It was a greeting message, saying that if he didn't have enough energy, he could consider lending his legs so that he could have a good sleep. If there was a chance. Chun Mingming replied. There was no one following him. At least, there wasn't anyone beside him. Although his strength was so weak that it made Nan Xiaonan's hair stand on end, his willpower was much stronger than that of ordinary people, and he could still feel the danger within a dozen meters around him. After entering Run Xiling's house, Nan Xiaonan had a very stable feeling. It was a very strange feeling. For some reason, she felt safe. She even had a rather inconceivable thought. She felt that in this clean and simple house, even if a level 10 superclass forbidden spell were to hit it, this house would not be damaged at all. Of course, this was just a delusion derived from the feeling of safety she felt. She didn't believe that this kind of concrete house could really withstand a level 10 superclass forbidden spell. A level 10 superclass forbidden spell was a calculation method of power in her original subworld. She didn't know what the calculation method of power in this subworld was. Although Nan Xiaonan had been sneaking in for some time, she was limited by the fact that she couldn't recover her strength. Thus, her exploration of this place was very limited. Moreover, she still had to avoid that mysterious pursuit. This room is my son's. Rin Xiling was holding a pillow and a bedding. There is another room here that is empty. Usually we put some miscellaneous things in it, but there is a bed. You should sleep here for the next 2 days, right? I'll listen to you, Sister Rin. Nan Xiaonan smiled. And you can sit and look around. I'll go take a shower. This damn weather is so sticky and uncomfortable. Ren Xiling directly walked into the bathroom. Not long after, the sound of running water could be heard. After leaving her luggage, Nan Xiaonan began to walk to the balcony. She leaned against the windowsill and observed the outside, looking for possible dangers. Unfortunately, her senses were limited and the range of her senses was limited. As for the true sight ability, she didn't have enough strength left to activate it. If only she hadn't used that spell at the scene of Wang Liang's murder. She used that spell in order to solve the case as soon as possible and then leave. But now, she had to bow to reality and rely on the protection of Ren Xiling, the child of the world. Even at her level, she couldn't help but sigh at the wonders of the world. But there seems to be something good here. Nan Xiaonan frowned. The so-called something good came from Ren Xiling's room. It was a very gentle elemental fluctuation. Seeing that Ren Xiling still hadn't come out, Nan Xiaonan was driven by curiosity. She quietly opened the door to Ren Xiling's room and walked in. A faint smell of smoke suddenly rushed into Nan Xiaonan's nose. Then she saw that the room was messy. Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but feel speechless. This was a completely different style from the clean and tidy room outside. The fluctuation of this something good came from under the bed. Nan Xiaonan squatted down. She didn't find this something good, but she found an ashtray hidden under the bed. I feel that this woman's life at home isn't good. Nan Xiaonan looked at the ashtray hidden under the bed and couldn't help but shake her head. But this something good had been found. It turned out that it was kept under the mattress and pressed on the bedboard. Looking at the piece of jade in her hand that was warm to the touch and gave out a slight cool aura, Nan Xiaonan's eyes couldn't help but brighten. This thing wasn't very advanced. In her collection, she was afraid that it wasn't even qualified to be a part of her collection. But for her at this moment, it was no different from a piece of treasure. What was rare was that this piece of jade contained a unit of power that could be absorbed. This piece of jade could completely restore her unit of power to about 1%. This thing can't be used. It can only emit elemental power. Although ordinary people will get better and better if they stay in this environment for a long time, at best, they will only be strong and healthy and won't get sick easily. This kind of usage is simply a waste of God's gift. Nan Xiaonan instantly had the idea of taking this piece of jade, but after thinking carefully, she couldn't help but feel puzzled. Although Ren Xiling was protected by the will of the world, she was indeed in the category of an ordinary person. She didn't have a trace of supernatural power in her body. This piece of jade was also secretly hidden and not directly used. Even if Ren Xiling didn't know how to use it, it was much more effective to put it on her body, hold it in hand, or keep it close to her body than to use it through the mattress. So, someone secretly put this piece of jade in here. Who was it? Sun? For a moment, Nan Xiaonan thought of the sun that Ren Xiling mentioned. Subconsciously, her eyes penetrated the door of Ren Xiling's room and fell on the door of another room. Nan Xiaonan's heart suddenly beat faster. Her intuition told her that there was something special in this room. Her intuition had always been very accurate. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to get a chance to leave her original world when there were so many supernatural beings competing with each other. But at the same time, Nan Xiaonan also felt a terrible sense of danger in her heart. Should she open this door? Nan Xiaonan was in a dilemma in her heart. She swore to God that this was just a very ordinary door. But the contradiction in her heart was actually comparable to the time when she was fighting with one of the most powerful beings in the original world. Open or not? As if there was magic, Nan Xiaonan walked to the door and reached out her hand to the door handle. She could even hear the sound of her own heartbeat. Tap! The moment her hand touched the door handle, a slight sound suddenly startled Nan Xiaonan and made her heart beat fiercely. She was very familiar with this sound. It was the sound of the kettle automatically tripping after boiling water. Who boiled water? She didn't remember Ren Xiling boiling water when he came back. Nan Xiaonan couldn't help but have some cold sweat on her forehead. She carefully walked out of the corridor and went to the living room. The moment she came out, a silhouette entered Nan Xiaonan's line of sight. A young man, at this time, was turning sideways and pouring hot water from the kettle into an empty cup. His side profile was good-looking. She's usually a little careless. Maybe she forgot to greet you. I'm really sorry. Luochio turned around with the cup and smiled. Please sit down. Nan Xiaonan's mind was almost blank. Her soul and willpower were crazily trembling at this moment. Chapter 1225. The sound of water was still coming from the bathroom, but in Nan Xiaonan's ears, it was like a torrential downpour. The trembling of her soul couldn't be faked. She was once an undying that faced the will of a world. She was even the strongest emperor amongst the undyings, one step away from eternity. But eternity was illusory to a life form at her level. It was only a legend, so she didn't hesitate to go out and search, crossing time and time just to find the earliest origin. No one told her what the origin was, but the moment she became an emperor, it was as if someone told her that the origin was her eternal home. The will of the subworld was one of the biggest obstacles that stood in his way. The heavens fell and the earth cracked. The true end of the world had arrived. Countless warriors fell in an instant. The order of the subworld was completely destroyed. All life forms returned to their most primitive state. She had never forgotten that era. All the undyings and pseudo-undyings had fought against the heavens. When the strongest people in the world gathered together to challenge it, it finally appeared. Just like the feeling it gave her now. No, it was even more intense several times, dozens of times. It was hard to estimate. Nan Xiaonan's face instantly turned pale. Her brain started to move crazily. Her spirit once again entered the acceleration mode that surpassed the laws of physics. Sit. Luochio glanced at Nan Xiaonan, casually saying, thinking too much is not good for your body. You don't have extra fat in your body to support your brain's activity. Nan Xiaonan overall had a bony body, slender and thin. The acceleration of her spirit suddenly stopped. Nan Xiaonan took a deep breath. She knew that if this young man in front of her was really the embodiment of the will of a world, she had no chance of resisting in this state. Even her original body might not be able to break free. Nan Xiaonan silently sat on the sofa. The sofa was obviously comfortable and soft, but she felt like she was sitting on pins and needles. Luochio placed a cup of water on the tea table in front of Nan Xiaonan. Thank you. Nan Xiaonan forced out an ugly smile, holding the cup. When the temperature of the teacup reached him, he realized that his hands were already cold. However, it wasn't hot at all. Obviously, it was a temperature suitable for entering the mouth and not scalding hot water everywhere. Nan Xiaonan was slightly stunned. This was indeed a temperature suitable for greeting people. You are the will of this subworld? She took a deep breath, and her mind gradually calmed down. She had always been a strong-willed person. Otherwise, she would not have fought for a sliver of opportunity in the midst of a terrifying and hopeless situation. She had the precious opportunity to explore space and time. Nan Xiaonan sipped the warm water and stared at him without blinking, trying to see more. I'm not. Luochio shook his head and said, but it should listen to me for now. Cough. Choking on a mouthful of water, Nan Xiaonan coughed painfully. I'm not, but it should listen to me for the time being. Nan Xiaonan didn't listen to what he said, and her accelerated thinking kept repeating these two simple sentences. She vaguely felt a stomachache. Nan Xiaonan didn't doubt the authenticity of these two sentences. It was true. The higher the level of life, the deeper the understanding of the will of the subworld, and the more the connection with the will of the subworld. Ordinary people wouldn't have any reaction even if they pointed at the sky and cursed, unless they were really angry and resentful. But at most, it would just be a little bit of thunder. But transcendents were different. If they didn't have a heart of reverence, but resisted from the heart, they would easily cause natural and man-made disasters. It was very effective and came very quickly. Like this guy, the will of the subworld didn't have any reaction at all. What kind of existence did I encounter? Nan Xiaonan finally stopped this useless acceleration at this moment, because she intuitively felt that even if she reduced all the heat in her body and exhausted herself, she might not be able to come up with a solution. She couldn't help but be calm, or rather, she had to be calm. The trembling in her soul didn't stop. This level of confrontation couldn't be described by simple units of power and was even more dangerous. It said that the subworld in front is more dangerous. Why didn't I listen? Nan Xiaonan wailed in her heart. She kept dodging danger, but she didn't expect that the more she dodged, the more dangerous the danger she encountered. She even came here unknowingly. Relax, Luochio suddenly said. Don't feel it. I can't hide the soul ripples on this level for now. You'll get hurt. She was already very hurt. Is this better? Luochio quickly asked. That feeling of soul trembling slowly subsided, and Nan Xiaonan felt a sense of relief. While her soul was trembling, she simply couldn't make too many responses. Even when her thoughts accelerated, it was as if she had fallen into a stagnant state, and even her thinking speed was much slower than under normal circumstances. Nan Xiaonan slowly heaved a sigh of relief. This time, she was truly relieved. He said that he couldn't hide her soul ripples for the time being. What was going on now? Did he use something to hide it? I met a Mr. called 24 not long ago. Luochio thought for a moment and said, Lady Nan, your original body should be stronger than his. 24? Nan Xiaonan frowned. Luochio said softly, he should be the same as you. Because of the space-time fluctuation last time, he accidentally got involved in this place. Nan Xiaonan's face stiffened slightly. He already knew. She had been so careful. The funny thing was he had already seen it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disturb you. Nan Xiaonan took a deep breath. I'll leave right away. The other party didn't seem to have malicious intentions for the time being, and he was unexpectedly polite. This made Nan Xiaonan feel a little strange, but on second thought, the other party might just want her to back off. At this time, she had already thought of the identity of this young man. Perhaps he was the son that Ran Xiling mentioned. She even understood another thing, the reason why the will of the subworld was so high-profile and publicly protecting. It turned out that she was wrong. Ran Xiling was not the child of the world at all, but a person who was publicly protected by the will of the subworld. That was not protection, but protection. Don't worry, let's talk. Luochio smiled and sat down. Nan Xiaonan's heart tightened, and then her expression became strange. This man, who made the will of the subworld submit to him, she was actually chatting with him in such a commoner's home. Shouldn't this be in a majestic palace, in front of the supreme throne, or at the top of the world? This was the right way to open the door. Talk about what? She had forgotten how many years it had been since she was this nervous. It was as if she was still a little apprentice, standing in front of an undying emperor. Lady Nan, do you know the number of your subworld? Luochio thought for a while and asked. Nan Xiaonan nodded. Number 0124? Subworld of magic law. But the concept of subworld was corrected after I explored space and time. In the original subworld, the concept was the plane. I see. Luochio nodded. The altar was omniscient, but as the boss, he had to pay a price to share its information. So, it was time for Luochio to get information without paying a price. The club, or the altar would not appear in every subworld, or it could be said that it was based on the thoughts of the executors and randomly chose the place to do business. It seemed that in the subworld number 0123, there were no related legends. In Nan Xiaonan's knowledge, there was no concept of a shop that could sell anything. Luochio suddenly liked this situation. He already had the ability to freely open and close transactions, unlike before where he was passive. And now, he met a visitor from a subworld who didn't have the concept of a club, which gave him a sense of novelty. He could freely change his identity, but Nan Xiaonan also had the right to come to the club. Forget it. If Nan Xiaonan really came, he would receive her as the boss. There was no need to hide anything. Even if Luochio stood in front of Nan Xiaonan without any concealment, Luochio's personal identity and his identity as the boss would be completely separated in the customer's perception, unless he let go of the distinction and let the connection continue. Boss Luo began to calculate in his mind, but Nan Xiaonan didn't even dare to breathe. In Nan Xiaonan's heart, she had long regarded this young man as the real outer level, perhaps the legendary primordial eternity. Otherwise, how could he have such a terrifying ability to suppress the world's will and make it listen to him. Lady Nan, can you tell me about your original world? Luocio smiled and said, I'm more curious. Nan Xiaonan could only nod. Her clear voice slowly sounded, and she talked about the situation of her subworld. The world map of the subworld number 0124 was different from the subworld number 0003, where Luocio was. After several changes, there were only 2 subworlds left, and there were only 2 races left. One was Nan Xiaonan's original human race, and the other was the demon god race. These 2 races were only born after the Dark Age of the subworld number 0124, and the 2 races had lost the relevant history before the Dark Age. They only knew that it was an apocalyptic disaster. Countless powerhouses died when the Dark Age came. The world was in turmoil, and all civilizations were wiped out. No records could be found. Not even relics could be found. The way to use power was a new development, but it seemed to still use the concept of magic. The unit of power was the standard to calculate the ability of an individual. In the original world, Nan Xiaonan learned a lot, but her main profession was star creation, saint guide, and arcane master. Arcane master was easy to understand. It was a method to use magic to attack. Star creation, saint guide? Luocio blinked curiously and said, What kind of ability is that? Nan Xiaonan said proudly, Star creation, saint guide, simply put, is the ability to use the power of a star spirit and use related spells to create life. In the subworld where I came from, there were only 3 star creation saint guides in the tens of thousands of years after the Dark Age. I'm the last one. Can create life? Luocio was startled. Can true souls be created? True souls? Nan Xiaonan was also startled, but she had experienced a few subworlds, so she immediately reacted. You're talking about true souls, right? It should be the same concept, Luocio said. Nan Xiaonan shook her head and said guiltily, The creation of true souls is at the level of the Creator. It's at the level of the world, Will. I can't do it. The so-called life is actually giving an object a simple thought, and at the same time, modifying the structure of the object itself so that it has the ability to move and talk. Also, depending on the difficulty of the spells, the abilities of star creation creatures can be strong or weak, or even have no abilities at all. It's a bit abstract. Can you show it to me? Luocio was more practical. Nan Xiaonan smiled bitterly. With my current power, I can't even use 1 star creation spell. Also, I haven't analyzed the rules of this subworld. Even if I have enough power units, I'm afraid the spell I use won't be able to create a highly intelligent star creation creature. In that case, Luocio thought for a moment, then snapped his fingers and said, You can try it now. Use this. At this time, a pink pillow automatically flew to Nan Xiaonan. Try it? Nan Xiaonan was startled. Wasn't this powerful being hiding in the subworld, making things difficult for her? Nan Xiaonan smiled bitterly in her mind. With the remaining power units she had. Power units? 30,000 power units? 30,000 power units? When did this happen? At the same time, the world laws of this subworld were like equations that were being verified. They were crazily unraveling in Nan Xiaonan's soul, and the power of the laws clearly carried out a terrifying verification and fusion with her knowledge. Nan Xiaonan sucked in a mouthful of cold air. She felt as if she had become a native of this world in an instant. That kind of stagnant feeling that had always existed in this world had completely disappeared. No, he had directly added the power system of her original world into the rules of this subworld. Nan Xiaonan's heart was beating so fast that it was about to jump out. When she looked at the man in front of her again, she could no longer think. Just because he was curious to see what the star creation technique was, he directly added another system into the world's precepts, and it was only a matter of a breath. Why was he so willful? Was this the so-called big boss? Can I demonstrate now, Lady Nan? Luocio asked with a smile. Yes. Nan Xiaonan swallowed her saliva. Her hands trembled as she took down the floating pillow in front of her. However, although 30,000 power units was still far from her heyday, it was enough to use a star creation spell of the highest level. In fact, The star creation spell did not have many power units. The key was to master the power of the rules within. Nan Xiaonan took a deep breath. She was afraid that if her star creation technique couldn't satisfy the opponent, she didn't know if it would usher in a real terror. She didn't dare to deal with it at the moment. Her mind instantly sank into the world of technique. Her fingers slowly began to draw on the surface of the pillow. One by one, strange symbols were written on the surface of the pillow. The symbols were emitting a bright red luster, just like the color of blood. Nan Xiaonan's forehead was gradually covered in fine sweat. This was the first time she had put in the most effort in carving since she became an undying emperor. The amount of effort she put into carving was close to the time when she had the opportunity to become an undying emperor. But why was it a pillow? The highest level star creation spell was used on a pillow. Nan Xiaonan felt that her star creation spell was crying silently. Finally, when all the symbols were carved and merged into the pillow emitted a bright red light. In front of Luocchio's eyes, the pillow suddenly flew out. Its shape began to undergo some strange changes. First, a short address appeared. Then, a pair of furry eyes appeared on the pillow. A crack appeared on the pillow, and then it turned into a big mouth. It began to jump on the floor.